rap battles of history.
Now, before we get started, let's talk about why I'm even putting myself through this. My goal is to journey back through a piece of YouTube history and analyze it from a modern perspective, as well as figure out, after all these years, the answer to a question I've had for now literally over a decade: who actually won these battles? And so, while I know there's an official HD remaster of the whole first season of ERB, it would have felt wrong not to use the original low-quality cuts. Back in 2010, 480p was the best we had, and the costuming budget matched. It was probably about $20 at the Goodwill. Macklemore hadn't even come out to teach us to say thrift shop yet. All they would have needed was to buy some thread for stitching the tassels on Lennon's jacket, and then, well, they had to get whatever they put on Lloyd's head and called hair. All that is filtered through some basic Photoshop effects and some free beats, and then just posted up on YouTube. Sure, it's basic, and micro-budget would be overselling it, but that was the charm of early YouTube. It's not some lavish, big corporate production, at least not yet. Just a goofy little side project by two aspiring improv comics, Peter Shukoff and Lloyd Alquist. Looking at Season 1 of Epic Rap Battles is really going to be a trip down the pop culture memory lane, back to a simpler time. And yes, I said Epic Rap Battles, because there was no ERB. That wasn't until Season 2. Season 1 debuted on the Nice Peter YouTube channel, adding to that very authentic and uncommercial feel to the whole thing. Now, let's see about the actual battle.
John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly. Begin!
Not awarding anything yet, but I wanted to point out that the way they opened this track and how they introduced the whole concept of a historical rap battle is by replicating, on a budget of course, a Beatles-style 3-part vocal harmony with the word help, which is of course the title of a famous Lennon-penned Beatles song. And even if it feels insignificant, it's all these little touches and details like that which help to make these videos so endearing and rewatchable, and you feel the care put into the series when you notice things like that.
You're making my ears bleed, you need a muzzle. Why you pissed off all the time? Didn't your mom give you a cuddle?
Okay, listen. I really don't want to start the first diss of the first ever rap battle with negative numbers. But for real, when's the last time you heard a rapper diss another rapper with "Yo mama never cuddled you"? You didn't hear that. It didn't happen. Because it's a bad diss. So it's a negative point.
You're the type of guy who could die of a heart attack just in the shower. You need to chill out for a minute and smoke weed for an hour.
So I guess the shower thing is because O'Reilly yells so much and seems stressed. So it's bad for the old cardiovasculars. But at least the weed suggestion makes sense with Lennon's character, so I guess we'll go a neutral score, no points. I don't know, man.
Every time I watch your show, all you do is scream at me, and your face looks like I took high on LSD.
Listen, I'm just as baffled by that line as John Lennon probably was when he took that dump. I'm on the fence about losing a point or not, but for the pun, this line is flushed down the drain, -1.
I'm John Lennon, I'm a legend, I can see through all your tricks. I wonder how much George Bush paid you to suck his...
No, but really. In the 2000s, Fox News, and Bill O'Reilly among them, were heavily supportive of the Bush administration. So coming from 2010, the height of the Great Recession, which was definitely at least partially caused by Bush's policies, this diss hits good. Not amazing, but at least worthy of the first positive point in the series. Hooray.
long hair.
Long hair does not have enough bite to get a score on this one.
Living in your yellow submarine, we're about to get sunk by the right-wing political machine. Stop your presses, Lennon. You call me Mr. Bill O'Reilly.
The main thing here is it felt like "Call Me Mr. Bill O'Reilly" was some sort of reference to something in real life. But from what I can tell, it's just a weird request that Mr. Bill O'Reilly has demanded of Sir John Lennon.
When it comes to squash and limeys, I can recommend it highly.
And then, of course, squash and limeys, my favorite outdoor hobby as well. I'm not docking a point, but really, these are some limp raps.
You're weak. Between you and me, there's no comparison. I'll beat you so bad you weep gently like George Harrison.
I mean, it's not amazing. But there's some character-related wordplay, a mild diss, and a brag about how good he is. I mean, better disses and introductions will come, but this is still decent enough for a point.
You're Paul McCartney's with his talent than Ringo, and I'd rather suck George Bush's than Yoko Ono.
Okay, honestly, that's a solid one. And it's a rebuttal to John's verse closer, so that gives it more weight. Honestly, screw it. First three-pointer of the show.
Well, you can't buy me love, but I'll kick your ass for free. I'll take Maxwell's silver hammer and give you a lobotomy.
Woof. Okay, first off, both Can't Buy Me Love and Maxwell's Silver Hammer are pretty much exclusively Paul McCartney songs. Like, I don't want to go too Beatles fan on this, but out of all of their songs, these are like the two least John Lennon possible. So, yeah, neither of these really work in this context. And yes, I know the Beatles songs are all co-credited, but listen, everyone agrees these are basically solo Paul compositions. Second, the line just isn't nuanced and thought out enough to be funny. It's really just a victim of being in the first battle ever, but still, it's a pretty bad set of bars, and I'm taking a point off.
I'm tired of how you scheme to stir the people up. Why don't you just take a vacation and shut the up?
That line needed a couple words taken out or something because the rhyme meter was all messed up. More importantly, John/Nice Peter literally said nothing with these four measures, which is just unfortunate. But you can't really remove points for nothing, so we'll move on.
Cause I'm evil, hard black and then Don Cheadle. $10,000 shoes I used to stomp out a beetle.
I don't care about the shoes, but can we go back to Don Cheadle's skin color being a barometer for how much darkness is in someone's heart? Can the Don Cheadle meter be featured in the next Kingdom Hearts game? Can we fight Bill O'Reilly's Heartless? It's so dumb. I don't think it makes enough sense to earn a point, but it's too entertaining to be a negative, so another neutral, I suppose.
Don't tell me to shut the up, that's how I survive. Now here's Sting, what? We'll do it live!
So that last part is a reference to an outtake from some time in the early 90s from Bill O'Reilly's show. I guess it was either in 1991 or 1993, because that's when Sting had new albums released to feature. I'll guess 93 because 10 Summoner's Tales apparently was a bigger seller than the Soul Cages, although they both charted about the same, so it's still up in the air and I don't really care to dig deeper. Anyway, this O'Reilly moment somehow ended up posted on the internet in 2008, and it became an early meme and viral video, back when that stuff was really novel to the mainstream media. So in 2010, it would have been a relevant reference. All this backstory and research is to say that making a dated meme reference that mentions Sting in a secondhand way is not worth a point.
Who won?
Honestly, I'm not surprised by how low the scores are, although having it go into negatives is pretty funny. What I am surprised by is how big of a disparity there is. I think back in the day, kid me liked John Lennon and disliked Bill O'Reilly to the point I just kinda automatically wanted John to be the winner. But really, Lloyd's raps in this whole thing are definitely a step above Peter's. Even still, these are low scores and not great raps, and even back in the day, this battle was never really that good. It's literally the poster child for saying, we've gotta start somewhere. The sets, the costumes, the props, the effects, they're all basic, and the raps even more so. And yeah, I could have gone easy on it since the only value it has is really being the first one. But I didn't want to do that. We're judging each rap on its own merits, and it'll be fun to have a baseline to properly judge how far along the series comes. And when you think about it, this one, John Lennon vs. Bill O'Reilly, is kind of the pilot episode of epic rap battles. So I can't wait for the next one, the real first episode, featuring a tiny bald man with bad facial hair and the ultimate BBC. And we'll get to see where, in many ways, the series actually kicks off. Thank you for tuning in, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.
Epic Rap Battles of History!
The decision to record a new announcer opening with a unique delivery each time is a brilliant little detail. Just that small touch of extra effort recording an extra line that isn't absolutely necessary, it goes a long way towards making each video feel unique and special.
Darth Vader versus Adolf Hitler!
Likewise, having, the mustache portrayed in black and white to replicate old video footage, though simple from a technical standpoint, is a great creative detail and a natural evolution from that Beatles 3-part harmony in the Lennon-O'Reilly episode. Something else to note, while that first episode had, I guess, some sort of loose theming in culturally left-wing versus culturally right-wing, this battle is the first to have a clear concept behind the rappers that were chosen. Here we have two dark lords of evil empires, with one of them being directly inspired by the other's existence. Having this kind of pre-established relationship between the figures in the battle makes a lot of sense from a production and writing standpoint, since it feels more natural than two random famous people. For me, this is another reason that Lennon O'Reilly felt like a pilot episode, while this feels more like the proper first episode.
I am Adolf Hitler!
Oh boy. Hello, modern audiences. I'm back from 2010 with some context for you. Mr. AH, which obviously stands for Achievement Hunter, was somewhat oddly a very normal figure to see in not just comedy but also general pop culture. Some things that come to mind immediately are various History Channel shows, Family Guy, Deadliest Warrior, but I'm sure even a quick look back would reveal many, many more examples. And it was 0% seen as offensive or in bad taste. Okay, maybe like 10% in bad taste, but certainly not as controversial as it would be now. At the time, having Charlie Chaplin in this battle would have been considered a mildly risque joke at the most. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it would be seen as super offensive or anything like that today, but I have a strong sense that this type of humor, along with the prevalence of this historical figure in pop culture of the time, it just doesn't quite fit the same way into the modern cultural landscape. In a way, it weirdly dates the material as much as the low budget and the video quality, maybe even more so. I don't know if I quite had a point with this, but it's something interesting to think about.
Command of the Third Reich! Little known fact, also dope on the mic! You are Vader, with your little boots and cape, and helmet to cover up that burnt-ass face!
This whole opening puts a smile on my face every single time. It's not even that the bars are that extraordinary or anything. I mean, there was probably a better diss available than burnt-ass face, but there's such a fun absurdity to Adolphus Hitloffius spitting bars against Darth Vader, and Lloyd sells the performance so well that I have to award a point here.
You have the force to move objects!
Also, and I'm so sorry for another interruption, but there's just so much to say about this episode. But do you notice something here that was missing last time? Something that feels so natural. Go back to the last episode and look for a second. Or here's both side by side. See it? Subtitles. Lennon O'Reilly, it just doesn't have them. It's, I think, the only battle in the whole series not to, but it's such a perfect addition. We'll chalk that up to that list of reasons why episode 2 is the true start of this series.
I am a force truly evil, even went back in time and turned you back as a prequel!
That time paradox where the Mustache Man inspired Palpatine, but Star Wars takes place a longer time ago than 1940 is just messing with my head right now. Funny line though, for if nothing else the line turned you whack in the prequel.
Cause look at you, you're not even a real person! I preferred you in Spaceballs, the Rick Moranis version!
Okay, so this is the first time we get the I'm real, you're fictional diss, and it's always something I have a problem with inherently. See, we're already having two people from different times and places rapping against each other for fame and glory or something. Acting like, oh, well that's fine, and that's all realistic and it makes sense. But then when one of these is also a fictional character, suddenly that's a bridge too far. Like, that's just nonsense. I hate it, viscerally to my core. If I was going to award a -3, it would be exclusively for this type of line. But in an effort to keep my system forgiving, it will be neutral, no point scores for me when it appears. However, we will be awarding a point for the Rick Moranis line. If Dark Helmet, the Darth Vader parody character played by Rick Moranis from the Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs, shows up in a future epic rap battle, maybe when Spaceballs 2 The Quest for Money eventually comes out, that would be something special.
You can't rhyme against the dark side of the force, why even bother? So many dudes been with your mom, who even knows if I'm your father?
Listen, I get what this joke is trying to do, but this is the most roundabout way to say I f***ed your mom I've ever heard. All around, the line's clumsy as hell, and I'm taking a point off.
You're a pissed off little prick with a Napoleon. You call that a mustache? I call that dirty Sanchez on your lip.
You're small, and your mustache looks like literal poo. I don't know, man, it's not terrible, but I can't in good conscience give this points.
You bitch, let me remind you who you're messing with. Everything that you did, I'm the who invented it.
But wait, didn't Mr. Armband just establish that he went back in time to turn you whack? And in the real world, didn't the war happen before the release of Star Wars? I'm sorry, Vader, but based on my timeline, I can't figure out a way for you to be the OG. And for bad maths, you get a negative point.
I'm the original Dark Lord, you're like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. My stormtroopers make yours look like someone took a piece of and cloned it.
I think back in the day I loved that line because Kid Me was like, ha, cloning turds. But really, making a poo joke the second one of the verse I might add, and not working in something about brown shirts, disappointing. Also, Nice Peter's rhyme meter is still off in this battle and he uses way more words than necessary. I won't do a negative here, it's not that bad, just middle of the road.
You stink, Vader! Your star smells something sour! You need to wash up, dog! Here, step in my shower!
It's just one of those lines, man. Legendary. It doesn't even necessarily say anything, but the punchline delivery for a gas chamber joke is just perfect. And really, I think this one deserves the full 3 points. Also, for any of the war history stuff, I'm going to have to ask you to go look that up yourself, because I'm not sure what YouTube would allow me to say. Also, I literally just noticed this, but Epic Lloyd's armband is throwing up the horns, and I just freaking love that.
I'll turn all your friends against you, just my speeches breed haters!
I don't know how specific I can be, but yeah, his speech is breeding haters. That sure is one way to put it.
What's your lightsaber versus a clan of all your white neighbors?
I mean, did you see the ending of Rogue One? I'd say it's worth quite a lot, actually. So I'm docking a point here just for lack of common sense.
Suck my robot ball!
Suck my robot balls, huh? What is this, Mecha Eric Cartman? It's almost a negative point, but I'll go neutral because the delivery is pretty solid.
Now take a step back and let me freeze yours off. A little carbonite bath.
And he makes a solid Star Wars reference right after with the carbonite bath. Not a super deep cut or anything, but at least it's deeper than surface level and a fun visual that they get to use by freezing Lloyd like Han Solo. Honestly, across the board, the visuals in this episode are a huge leap up from the first and showcase some legitimately impressive stuff for an independent YouTube channel in 2010. Good for them.
For your goose-stepping ass, we'll call my homeboy in Israel. See who got the last laugh.
Oh, because certain ideologies have been on the rise globally and Israel is caught up between the Gaza situation and a corrupt administration. Wait, no, that can't be right. I think what this diss is supposed to be doing is something along the lines of, you tried to destroy them, but instead you died and they got a powerful nation state. I feel like this must have landed better back in 2010, and I feel in my heart of hearts that there's something solid here. So I'll still give it a point, but I am quite confused, and I'm not even sure back then if world politics were different enough to clear things up. Also, not sure what that stormtrooper was doing living there. Jewish stormtrooper confirmed?
Who won?
The scores on this one are still pretty low all around, but you can see the improvement from the first episode. Lloyd especially just nails it with his raps. I'm still surprised by how lopsided things ended up being. Vader did better in my memories, but that's probably a bit of the Star Wars fan bias in me. Nice Peter's raps were consistently a bit too wordy and unfocused. But oh well, he'll get better. Starting with the next one, he really starts improving, and we'll be having a fun time watching his growth. Especially through this first season. Speaking of, see you next time, when the power of Chuck Norris compels Peter to rise to the moment, undivide the house, and use his top hat to heal the nation. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Now, what the hell is this face? It's so doofy, but I love it. Also, I'm just gonna say it right up front, I'm not a huge fan of the beat on this battle. Those high piano notes aren't doing it for me. Anyway, let me see that epic Chuck Norris.
Horses! Chuck!
Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Beautiful, inject it right into my veins, let's go.
Score! In 65 years in the past, I won the Civil War with my beard! Now I'm here to whoop your ass!
I guess these are fine opening bars. It says about as much as the Hitler one. I was famous in history, now I'm here to rap hard. And it even gets the Gettysburg Address opening in there, and I appreciate that they did the basic math and updated the amounts to get the difference from 1865 to 2010. As always, it's the little things that make this series. But I think the issue is, Crunk Lincoln is such a terrible interpretation of this character that it can't sell the line effectively. So, no points here. Almost. But I just can't do it.
I've read up on your back, you cure cancer with your tears. Well, tell me, Chuck, how come you never sat down and cried on your career?
Jesus Christ, dude, you f***ing killed him. Seriously though, Nice Peter's first triple of the series, and it happens to set a new bar for, well, the best bar so far.
You're a washed up has-been on TV selling total gems.
Honestly, that deserves a point. I mean, it was an embarrassing product to be hawking, and that QVC video with Chuck Norris and his son is a solid little bit of old internet comedy to revisit.
Then you're gonna lose this battle like you lost Return of the Dragon. I'll rip your chest hairs out, put him in my mouth. I'll squash you like I squash this out. I never told a lie and I won't start now. You're a horse with a limp, I'll put you down.
Generally, I wouldn't give an award for the basic "I'm gonna beat ya" type line, but the Return of the Dragon recap, the Civil War reference, and the old-timey simile are all specific enough to the characters that it gets the point for adding some world building and immersion to the battle.
This isn't Gettysburg, punk. I'd suggest retreating, for I invented rap music when my heart started beating.
Oh boy. I kind of forgot that all of Chuck Norris's lines are Chuck Norris jokes. I mean, I guess that's why he was even relevant enough to be in this battle. For those who don't know or don't remember, there were a few years, maybe between like 2008 to 2011, where Chuck Norris jokes were a very popular meme that everyone loved, or at least pretended to love. You know, the Chuck Norris is so powerful that he built the house he was born in, that type of stuff. Back in 2010, using these jokes definitely was a tiny bit dated, but it was still relevant enough to be fine. And Kid Me enjoyed it enough. So what I'm gonna do here is try to rate these raps from an early 2010s viewpoint where Chuck Norris memes are still fun and universally known about. Even still though, that opening line was worth nothing.
Chuck Norris doesn't battle, he just allows you to lose. My raps will blow your mind like a verbal John Wilkes Booth.
Well, that was a short verse. I think they were trying to start playing around with the structure of raps, which would eventually pay off with more complex and interesting battles, and was a great decision overall, but here it's kinda weird Chuck only gets 8 bars. Anyway, I'm torn. The John Wilkes Booth line is almost worth a point, but it feels like more could have been done with it. Still, at the time I remember thinking it was a good one, and it's still at least decent, so I guess here, it gets a point.
I've got my face on the side of a mountain. You voted for John McCain.
Okay, that joke hit better when Obama-McCain was the most recent election, but even still, it hits pretty hard. Kinda want to give it 3 points, but I'll just do 1 because I know every year that passes, this diss gets less potent.
I've got a bucket full of my head, and I'm about to make it rain. You block bullets with your beard, I catch them with my skull.
These are weird lines all around. Sure, it's a bucket of pennies, and that's cool you're on money, but what's that all worth, like 20 bucks or so? Bucket might have cost more. And then, yeah, you caught 1 single bullet, and then, like, died. 'Cause you got shot in the head. So I'm not quite sure that's impressive, but whatever, man. Gonna just take off a point and move along.
I make fun of Walker, Texas Ranger, but I've never even seen that shot.
Honestly, this joke hits home because I do the same thing. Or did, at least back in 2010, when it just seemed like some weird thing the meme guy did in the 70s or whatever. I just googled it right now to learn what it's even about, and apparently it was from the 90s until 2001, meaning it had most of its new episodes in my lifetime, which is the most baffling thing to me in the world. Also, it literally visually looks like a Chevy truck commercial was made into a TV show for 8 seasons. So this diss is still valid and will forever be valid, and thus it deserves a point.
I am Chuck Norris! I've spread more blood and gore than 40 score of your puny civil wars!
It's not bad, it's just lame. No points because it's not even worth talking about.
I split the Union with a roundhouse kick! I wear a black belt on the beard that I grow on my...
Okay, this gets a point because I absolutely love the idea of a tiny beard with a little tiny beard black belt around it.
I attack sharks when I smell them bleed! I don't go swimming! Water just wants to be around me!
Really, it's just hard, because these are actually half-decent Chuck Norris jokes, but they're still Chuck Norris jokes. So I don't know, whatever. This one and the next set of lines each gets a half point, so we'll just do a full point between the two, capiche?
I wish that it was faster. You may have freed the slaves, but Chuck is everyone's master.
Okay, but really, what the hell is going on with Lloyd's arm in this shot? Okay, it just keeps getting better and better score-wise. Both rappers are in the positives on this one, and hey, Peter even churned out his first win, with his flow improving greatly. Lloyd honestly probably rapped better, but using only Chuck Norris jokes is a major handicap for him, as it would be for anyone in life. This battle is an interesting one. Call it a sophomore slump, but it feels like a small step back from the previous episode. The theming isn't nearly as strong, the visuals and costumes aren't as good, and the beat is kind of mid, and overall I just don't like the battle as much. A big part is definitely Chuck Norris being here purely for the meme and how much that inclusion dates and limits the production. But on the other hand, you can still see the actual technical aspects of the show improving, you could hear both Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd improving as rappers, and you get the sense that this is where the creators are starting to see the potential to extend this crazy epic rap idea into something more than just a couple goofy videos. Unfortunately, that potential will have to wait. Tune in next time as we watch the momentum die when we get to see two very of the time celebrity choices create something, well, we'll say very underwhelming. But hey, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's a hidden gem. Maybe I've just got my poker face on and this bridge to nowhere is actually a bridge to Terabithia. Wait, that wasn't right. In any case, like and subscribe and I'll catch you next time. This is definitely an interesting moment right here, because it rewrites what's possible in this series. For 3 episodes, you've been used to staring down these same 2 dudes in goofy, outlandish caricature outfits of famous people from history, and then all of a sudden, you're greeted to this random lady who looks like a pretty spot-on, accurate representation of a prominent politician of the time. So congrats to Lisa Nova, whose presence essentially made it possible for all future guest rappers to exist, and who set the template for allowing the guest rapper to just show up and become the character without any fanfare or introductions to take you out of it. That said, I do, mourn the chronic lack of Epic Lloyd raps in this episode. I mean, it's actually a weirdly good Lady Gaga costume. At least better than the Abe Lincoln from the Streets thing from last episode. And it's the start of a long tradition of Nice Peter being able to slip into pretty much any persona. But even still, this is just kind of a weird one, and I can't say I fully support this costuming choice.
Oh boy, look what we have here! A transvestite with a keyboard trying to be freaking here!
Alright, well, that voice is ear-splitting. But then again, so is the real Sarah Palin, so what are you gonna do? It's a good impression, honestly, which makes sense. I never watched her channel at the time, but from what I can tell, Lisa Nova is here because she actually had a pretty successful couple of videos where she parodied Palin. I assumed at first she was ripping off the Tina Fey bit on SNL, but then I checked Nova's first vids post date against when the SNL skit aired, and her first Palin video actually came out about 2 weeks before Tina Fey's debut. Now, am I saying the SNL writers saw something from the internet and co-opted the idea for their show? For legal reasons, no. But the timing is a bit sus. Anyway, the real issue with this opening set of bars is the transvestite with a keyboard line, which will now require more backstory for modern audiences. Gather round, children. Back when Lady Gaga first debuted and hit the mainstream around 2008, some people started making jokes that she looked like a man. Some videos claiming to show bulge in her pants went viral at some point, and a lot of people started honestly believing she was either a man or she was born a male and transitioned. This culminated with the release of Born This Way, after which large amounts of people were convinced that the song was about Lady Gaga herself changing genders. And as something to note about the release timeline, this battle rap came out about a month before that song released. So it really existed during the peak of this whole discussion/conspiracy. Now, for her part, Lady Gaga seemed to, on a certain level, enjoy portraying herself as androgynous, as have many musicians before her, so she didn't really discourage the rumor per se. But still, at the end of the day, it is an ugly bit of internet discourse, and while I don't believe that the people at ERB were trying to be offensive in this way, there is an aspect to Nice Peter playing Lady Gaga that feeds into the homophobia and transphobia that drove that whole rumor, so it is a bit unfortunate to look back upon now. Also of note, back in 2011, calling someone gay or a transvestite was considered inherently funny by a lot of people. That was the joke. And it's not a good joke. To be honest, a lot of elements of this particular rap battle are very of the time in a bad way, and feel like they're here with the goal more of chasing headlines, and it ends up aging the video poorly. All this to say, I'm going to be taking just the standard 1 point off here. Maybe it should be more, but I feel like I've given more history than actual line critique at this point, and I think the bars themselves are just the regular kind of bad.
Your voice sounds like a rooster having sex with a frog. They put a lot of lipstick on you, but you still look like a dog.
Oh, God. This episode's gonna need so many more explanations than the last ones. I was on easy mode before pop culture started coming to the forefront. That's what happens when you chase trends and talk about current events too much. Everything gets instantly dated when you enter a new era. There's a lot to unpack here, and none of it's even funny or good rapping, so just in advance, this is a neutral point situation because it's all kind of just boring filler. But anyway, the Rooster Frog line. Back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, tons of people thought autotune was basically like the devil's voice box. Not literally satanic, but evil in the this is destroying music sort of way. I mean, hell, I remember Kid Me bashed autotune a lot. I don't quite know why in hindsight. I guess the idea was it wasn't real music because it was too obviously fake or something like that. Which there is some truth behind it. I do think modern pop music production could benefit from a bit less pitch manipulation and a bit more of an organic feel. But the way complaints were levied back at the time was just really stupid and ignorant. Let's not pretend there was nuanced discussion about the pros and cons of certain vocal engineering techniques. In hindsight, it was more like people getting mad about Dylan going electric, or about disco sucking hard enough it deserved to burn, or saying rap isn't real music. It was people trying to turn their tastes and preferences into fact by using hyperbole rather than building arguments out of technical knowledge, and the whole thing just got out of control. Now, the other line here, with the lipstick and the dog. Obama, the Barack one, the president, had this weird comment where he said something like, "You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig." And that was in response to one of Sarah Palin's most famous quotes, which was, "What's the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick." And I'll be real, I don't understand what anyone meant by any of this. It feels like some bizarro set of disses from the strangest rap beef ever. But what I can say is that if anyone tries to tell you about the simpler times in the good old days, about how politics made more sense and we were more united, tell them they're absolutely wrong, because in 2008, a presidential nominee called his challenger's vice presidential pick a pig, after that person referred to herself as a pit bull, and the crowds responded with thunderous applause. Applause even. Sorry, terrible Lady Gaga joke. So back to the battle. After all of that, I think this line in this rap here is supposed to be about that, but I'm just realizing how bungled the whole delivery was, and I know what I said before about it being neutral, but I'm actually taking another point off here, for all the explaining I had to do and for what a mess this whole rap already is.
Put down that teacup, honey, go put on some pants and...
So she, Lady Gaga, wore like leotards and stuff for most performances and red carpet appearances at the time. So people shamed her sometimes by saying she was too risque and needed pants. And I know this seems ridiculous and like I'm making it up, but you don't realize how fast things, especially fashion, can change.
Stop letting little monsters teach you how to dance and...
And then there's her hardcore fans at the time, which were known as her Little Monsters. I don't know if that's a moniker that still applies now, but more importantly, I don't remember her fans teaching her how to dance at any point. I don't know if it's a reference to some other thing, but I'm just blown away by how little sense any of these raps are making right now. Another point bites the dust.
You may be Gaga, but you ain't a lady at all. I've seen those outfits you've been wearing, that takes big balls.
I'm not 100% certain what the clapping was about. I think it's a reference to the drum sound in the Queen song Radio Gaga, which is the song Lady Gaga named herself after. But it's not a clap in that song, it's like a very 80s compressed snare drum sound. And off the top of my head, I don't know any of the Lady Gaga hits from the time that featured a clap like that. But I don't know, I don't fucking know. And then we have another transvestite joke, and just wow, this verse, man, hot garbage.
I think I'd rather elect a Smurf than vote for you. Governor of Alaska? That's like the principal of a home school.
Wow, way to diss both the entire Smurf Republic and all the citizens of Alaska. Fair point though, since Alaska's low population and largely uninhabited wilderness does certainly make the governorship there at least less demanding to a certain extent compared to other states with more infrastructure. Still probably a hard job though, and the state faces a lot of unique issues because of its geography. So I'll give a point for comedy and delivery while acknowledging the flaws here.
You are the sum of everything I despise. We're the most dysfunctional family since the Jackson F***ing 5.
There's that classic Nice Peter, throwing in too many syllables just to get the swear in. Also, yay, more references for me to explain. The members of the Jackson 5, who were Michael Jackson and his siblings when they were young, had a famously, we'll call it tumultuous upbringing, largely because of their father who was allegedly a tyrant, to put it lightly. Meanwhile, Sarah Palin's family was kind of a train wreck, complete with them all showing up on a reality show to showcase how dumb they all were, and also resulting in a very strange Family Guy episode about Palin's daughter who had Down syndrome. God, it was a weird time. I kind of get what the diss here is trying to do, and I don't think it's bad enough to lose a point, but it's pretty poorly executed. So we'll just give nothing and call it a day.
Just trust me, your 15 minutes of fame came and went. Go back to your igloo. Spend some time with your kids before they're pregnant.
Let's ignore that the igloo line is kinda dumb and maybe slightly offensive, but I don't know much about the politics of igloos. And also, we can, in the other direction, ignore that Gaga's prediction about Palin's time in the spotlight being over was largely correct, at least from the standpoint of when I'm recording this now. Politics are weird, and it's not unusual for people to become important again way out of the blue. The lines are both boring, and they kinda balance out. The real moment here is the pregnancy one. Palin's daughter, Bristol Palin, got pregnant underage and unmarried, and it was a big deal during the 2008 presidential election because Palin and John McCain ran a platform which heavily touted family and conservative values. And so it was a minor scandal, and people used it as an attack on Palin's character, accusing her of being a hypocrite and a bad mother. Honestly, it was all a mess, and I'm not sure I really agree with anything that went down, but I still think its reference here is a fair play by the character of Lady Gaga in the context of the rap, and I'll give it a point. I'd give it a 3 for the shock value, but looking at the wall of explanation I need for the joke to work, it's pretty impossible to argue the diss isn't a bit dated.
Your frigid little body couldn't even handle what I do. I think the truth is, Sarah, my music just scares you.
This one, luckily, I don't think needs much explanation. But basically, I remember a big defense of Gaga's music and shocking persona at the time was saying that people who hated her were just intimidated and threatened or scared for all the wrong reasons. Honestly, it was a fair argument, and Palin was the exact type of person who would have felt this way about Gaga. So, point awarded here. It's good social commentary.
Your music doesn't scare me. I'm a mother of 5. I killed moose with my bare hands before you were alive.
Okay, I'll give this one to Sarah. And thank God I don't need to explain this at all. I want it known I breezed through the scripts for those first 3 battles and then just hit a wall of burnout having to say so much about this one. But the moose. The moose! It's so simple, it's so self-explanatory. Thank the moose.
Everything you do is just a rerun of Madonna.
This one also fairly simple, but sadly not as good. Basically, back in the day, people who hated Lady Gaga would often dismiss her as a Madonna ripoff. I'll be real, I think it's just because they're both blonde pop stars because they're really extremely different people who created vastly different art.
Your fans are in a frenzy like a bunch of gay piranhas.
Also, while the image of actual gay piranhas is kind of hilarious, it isn't really a great diss. I'll go for neutral on this one.
I sound more intelligent than you when I fart.
That basic 2010 Adobe animation for the fart, oh my god. I'll be real, it's so dumb looking, but I kinda wanna just give a giggle point for saying fart like that, and I think that's what I'm gonna do.
I wonder if you even know how to spell the word art.
Gaga's just calling Palin stupid in more words.
You don't belong in politics, you belong in a hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is vaguely referencing that aforementioned lipstick diss that had me explaining the hockey mom comment, but looking at history, this feels less like a diss and more just like a factual statement. I kind of feel like Sarah Palin would be happier at a hockey game than in politics.
History will regret you like John McCain.
Oh my. I'm glad they were able to fit Lloyd in there somewhere at least. And look, they even managed to reuse the Bill O'Reilly wig. Kudos. But really, in 2010, this line was biting. What a world where John McCain was so easy to criticize. As far as the line quality though, I'm taking a point off just for how wrong the statement is. I don't think John McCain, of all things and all people, will be regretted by history. Maybe faded and forgotten, but there's a lot more to regret, so this line just feels cheap. As far as the big picture goes, this rap is a step forward as much as the past raps, especially in the showcasing of both Peter's character talents and the ability for the show to allow guest rappers. The guests will become integral to the show going forward, as they can expand the rapper possibilities when Lloyd and Peter just won't cut it. Even if a secret part of me needs to see what Epic Lloyd's Palin would sound like. And not even joking, it would probably have been a stronger video if he did play the part. There's big steps backward in the actual quality of the raps here, and again, the theming is weak at best. It's basically a retread of the tenuous left-wing versus right-wing idea from the Lennon O'Reilly episode, with the gimmick this time being it's two female celebrities. And I'm sure a lot of the issues come down to growing pains. With the first guest comes a shakeup to production, and I'm sure it added an unseen layer of difficulty to things. I don't know how the writing room worked at the time, but either Lisa Nova was bringing in her own raps with her own style to the table, or Lloyd and Peter were trying to write raps for another person. Either way, that had to have made things just a little more challenging, and I think the performers did their best, even if it turned out kind of bad. No offense to Lisa, and only slight offense to Season 1 Nice Peter. Add to that an extra person whose schedule you need to work around for shooting, and the clear effort to consciously try to reach a large audience by chasing current events, and Episode 4 really comes off as a production brought down by a feeling of maybe newfound pressure that hadn't been there before. It's the first time they're making something with expectations which they know a whole lot of eyes will see, and they're having a bit of trouble meeting the moment. That said, the rap is still serviceable. It wasn't glaringly bad at the time, and I think mostly it looks worse in hindsight, because it's so much more rooted in a certain pop culture moment than the previous episodes. And I don't remember at the time being so critical about it, even if it was never my favorite. But hey, we're past that. A minor hiccup, but now we're off to the epic rap arena. The rappers have been training, and we'll see if our muscly boys can use the first ever ERB tag team to take down Sonic the Hedgehog's mother. Stay tuned for more breaking news. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you later. Hello, this is the Who Won Kid here, recording through being sick, so I'm sorry about the voice, but thank you so much again for watching this video. It was so long, literally double the previous in length, and you, yes, you out there have watched all the way to the end like a madman, and you're literally the best for it. I'm really happy with the response to the channel so far, and I'm having a blast making these videos. That said, if you'd like to send me a tip, use my Ko-fi link down in the description below. Anything at all helps, and the more I make on here, the more time and attention I'll be able to put on making these YouTube videos. I don't have any bonus content available at the moment, but let me know what type of material you'd be interested in seeing in the future, and I'll see what I can do. And I don't know, I suck at drawing, but if you throw enough money at me, I could be convinced to do some sort of commission piece for you. Anyway, y'all are the best. Looking forward to seeing what happens in the future, and see ya. Catch you next time. Are you ready? Okay, so here we got Timothy De La Ghetto, now Tim Chantarangsu. So good for him for moving on up. And he is our second guest rapper ever. And Tim here is an actual rapper, as well as the host of a popular internet comedy channel. I didn't watch his stuff at the time, but from what I can tell, he was a pretty big get as far as internet celebs went.
It's so big.
which really points to the dramatic success that ERB was experiencing. ERB would continue to feature many more famous people from the internet, which is fitting and makes sense for the format. It's basically the synergistic branding of the time.
Synergy!
Ugh, yuck, I hate that those words came out of my mouth. I also think it's a smart move to have people come on who have some sort of background in music, since they are, recording songs after all. Now for what it's worth, Lisa Nova from the previous episode, on top of having her own channel with her Sarah Palin parody, was actually also the co-founder of Maker Studios, who I think produced ERB for most or all of its run. But don't 100% quote me on that. Sometimes once corporate buyouts happen, it can be really hard to tell what company is actually the official production studio. But anyway, that's all to say that Nova was far from a random choice, and her inclusion as the first ever guest star makes a ton of sense with that context. Still, she was more from an acting and business background, which does make me wonder if her, from what I can tell, little to no musical experience, especially at the time, contributed to the subpar quality of the Palin verses. It's hard to tell, and that could easily not be the case. We can only speculate about how the goings-on behind the scenes would impact the finished product, but it is something to think about.
Fortress! Hulk Hogan!
What even the ass, man? I'll be real, this epic Peter Hogan costume, I can't make myself stop laughing at it. It's just such a travesty, but it's so perfect. A round of slow claps for everyone who approved of this. Just wow.
The name's Kim Jong, I got a license to ill.
Starting off with a Beastie Boys reference while also making a pun with your name? Yeah, you deserve to get a point right off the bat.
Make you swallow my rhymes like a steroids pill.
Okay, I like that we're already hitting with decent material faster than in previous episodes. I mean, steroids, pills, and 80s wrestlers go pretty much hand in hand. I like the line. I can't fault it. Here's another point to Kim.
Your body looks like a spray tan banana with a Walrus mustache and a whack bandana.
I mean, a spray-tanned banana is not far off from the Hulkster's bod. And he does have a walrus mustache. And his bandana is indeed whack. Rock solid so far.
I'm coming at you like the age of Ric Flair. Bitch, I'll suplex you by your freaking hair.
I'll be real, Ric Flair is a pretty arbitrary wrestler name to drop here with a new Asian alter ego. Sure, Hogan and Flair had some major wrestling rivalry back in the day. For the record, I watched the 1991 matchup as research for this one. It was pretty damn entertaining. But Hogan had many rivalries and matched up against so many wrestlers throughout his career. I think Ric Flair was chosen because Kim could rhyme his name with hair, and since that line is pretty funny, I really haven't got a problem with it, so carry on, sir.
Your whole family's a bunch of Barbies, dude.
I think this is referring to the fact that Hogan's ex-wife, wife at the time, and daughters all do look a lot like living Barbie dolls in a way. But I also do feel like it's too much of a reach for the joke to give it a point, so neutral here.
You want beef? Eat this Korean barbecue.
Honestly, ew. But also, now I'm thinking about Korean barbecue, which there is one down the street from me. But what I'm not thinking about is rewarding points here.
You got a ringside seat to your own SmackDown, brother! You look like Sonic the Hedgehog's mother!
This is just a well done opening line that hits right. I don't know what else to say, but I know it deserves a point.
You're a freak, a phony, a rice-a-roni jabroni!
Here's a point for the rice-a-roni jabroni line, because it so perfectly sums up why Hulk Hogan's speech pattern is so entertaining to listen to in the first place.
I'm gonna bounce you like a check for my alimony!
This alimony line. A little hard to 100% decipher, but I believe it refers to Hulk's wife at the time demanding alimony payments for their teenage son as a part of their massive, messy divorce. Fun fact, this rap actually came out about 9 months before that settlement was made final, and she got about 70% of his net worth of the proceedings. So in hindsight, this line was already a bit of a self-burn, but now it comes off as Hulk giving himself a savage verbal suplex. So definitely a point off.
Come on, dude! All the little Hulksters know! I'll hang you from the ropes like a South Park puppet show!
I feel like the little Hulksters probably know that South Park doesn't have puppets, Peter. No matter how many extra syllables you try to cram in these bars.
I'll chokehold you hostage like Laura Ling!
Oof. Okay, well, story time. This is a heavy one. Laura Ling was an American TV reporter who was doing a report in China near the North Korean border on women who escaped from Korea and then got sold as brides in China. Apparently, some North Korean military personnel captured Laura and her fellow newscaster, what was their name? Yuna Lee, and brought them across the border where they were sentenced to 12 years in North Korean labor camps for illegally entering the country. Somehow, Bill Clinton, of all people, was the one chosen to meet with Kim Jong-il to get them released. This was in 2009, by the way, so way after Clinton was actually the president in office, and fairly recent by even today's standards, and really recent in early 2011. I don't know, it's confusing and was a big crisis, and if you're interested, there's a lot of public information available. But when it comes to this line in this rap, I personally think this is all a bit too heavy to squander on a chokehold pun. So I'm taking a point off for missed potential more than anything.
Brother, I'll leg drop your ass back to Beijing!
Beijing is in China, you blonde ass!
I love that whole exchange because it is something that I'm sure Hulk would say if he talked about East Asia's geography. But is it point-worthy? After some careful deliberation by the judges and in a split decision, we are giving it the point.
I'm a god amongst men, you're a suburban commando!
A reference to Ill being considered a god because of his leadership position and, more importantly, the 1991 Hulk Hogan comedy classic in which he plays an alien robot warrior who lands on Earth and has to learn how to fit in with Christopher Lloyd and his family in their suburban home. This line gets a point because the flex is just too real.
North Korea, bitch, let me give you a tour! By the way, your wife says my is bigger than yours!
Yes, my penis is very grande. This will always be one of the laziest and weakest types of disses, and it will always receive a knock in these ratings unless the creativity is off the charts. The creativity here might actually be below the charts.
Hulk Hogan goes down! I don't know if he can finish the battle!
So this is the really big moment, the huge draw of this episode in particular, and it's a gigantic leap of progress. And I'll talk about it more in depth at the end of the video, but at the time this was a galaxy brain move on the part of ERB. Not limiting the battle to just two individuals seems so obvious now in hindsight, but in real time they didn't get there until episode 5, and about 5 months into the series' existence. Well worth the wait though. This to me kind of is the moment ERB was fully born into this world.
Ooh, yeah, it's about to get real. Watch me snap into a Slim Jim Kim Jong-il.
I'll be real, the line doesn't actually do much of substance, but it's so damn fun to say and sounds so good. Basically, it's the most iconic line from this episode. Also, it's a reference to the famous Macho Man Slim Jim commercial, so how could it not get a point?
I don't like dead little bitches with glasses, but when midgets step up, I stomp midget asses.
It's just not the greatest threat or challenge, and midgets might be an offensive term. I don't know, I kinda wanna just move past it, so how about no points and on to the next one.
Macho Man, there is no equal, so spend less time rapping and start feeding your people.
Oh my, he destroyed him. That's a 3-pointer there, that is. I feel like I don't need to explain, but basically, North Korea is a famously hard place to live if you are a fan of consuming your daily recommended caloric and vitamin intake.
Punk, I'll elbow drop your whole nation. On behalf of the entire World Wrestling Federation.
Well, yeah, should be easy since the whole nation is starving. But for real, this gets a point for literally the same reason as the Slim Jim line. I just enjoy how it sounds so much and the impression feels so right. Also, World Wrestling Federation is what the WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment, was called before it changed its name after a legal battle with the World Wildlife Fund over the WWF moniker. Fucking pandas, man.
Ooh, yeah.
Wow, that was a close one. And I was not expecting the guest to win. With De La Ghetto crushing Hogan in the first verse, but Lloyd coming in with the Macho Man assist at the last second, and it really is a split decision victory. This battle is a step up all around from everything that came before as far as the technical rapping skill. And this idea of tagging out adds another new innovation to the series. It's actually a huge step because it allows for so many more characters to start entering and opens the door for so many more rap dynamics. It's kind of funny to me that they used a framing device for the tag team and that it's a wrestling match. I feel like the creators didn't even realize they were doing it, but it reminds me of how Super Mario 64 eased gamers into the 3D realm by framing the camera perspective as a literal camera filming the proceedings. Or how The Wizard of Oz has the real world be black and white while the world of Oz is in color to spotlight that technical transition. Obviously, I'm not saying that having two people on one rap team is quite as monumental as The Wizard of Oz, but it is funny how the same sort of framing is used to introduce it, and it really is a huge leap of that caliber as far as the show is concerned. It's crazy when you realize how much progress we've seen over 5 episodes. You can clearly see the effort to produce something of higher quality, utilizing a bigger budget, better equipment, and more talent on and off the screen. Looking back, this is in a lot of ways the first Battle 2.0, a soft reboot if you will. It feels like the first time ERB was being created as a full-time series rather than as a side project, and it was a necessary and successful course correction after the Pale and Gaga episode. I have to wonder if this is the reason this episode in particular received a shiny re-edit much later down the line. It always felt a bit random to only have episode 5 be reimagined with higher production quality and new edits, but it makes sense if the creators themselves also think of this as the proper birth of the series and the true episode 1. Well, we'll see if this progress holds steady and if the budget continues to pay off as a Canadian boy with a dream does battle with a rapping Saint Bernard. Until next time, this has been the Who Won Kid, and I'm signing off. Drop a tip at my coffee link below, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you next time. Before we begin, I need to address the elephant in the room. I'm a bit of an idiot. I know, shocking. But in the past couple episodes, I've lamented multiple times about how we can only speculate about what's going on behind the scenes when making these videos. And then, while editing the previous one, I remembered that ERB2 is a channel. And the embarrassing part is I must have known at some point in the past, because I know I used to watch it as a kid. And ERB2 is literally primarily used as a behind-the-scenes making-of for every single episode of ERB, besides Lennon O'Reilly, which again feeds into my opinion that it's essentially the pilot episode rather than a proper episode 1. Going forward, I'll correct this blunder and I'll incorporate anything interesting I can find in ERB2, but I want to do a little recap right now of anything that I missed from the previous ones. And we'll start that recap now. Episode 2, Vader and Hitler, are weirdly cut up into 2 episodes, I guess since it's the first time they did a behind the scenes and they hadn't nailed down the format yet. Vader is first, and it's mostly just Peter standing in front of a green screen, and you get to see this crappy little DSLR camera that they used. Takes me back to film school. And periodically, you get to see Lloyd putting on his mustache. Also, the audio quality is terrible and nothing interesting happens. The second video has a lot more going on. Peter introduces himself and Lloyd and gives a little backstory about their relationship and career history and work with Mission Improbable. And they show some embarrassing footage of when they were young lads with full heads of hair. And he actually ends up tying ERB into that work with Mission Improbable, essentially characterizing it as an extension of that improv work. You also get to see a little practice run of some of the raps, and you get to see some of the ideas forming as well on this terrible little soundstage, and it's very adorable. And then they cap things off with one of the worst freestyles I've ever heard. Incredible. Lincoln and Norris, episode 3. Nice Peter opens by introducing himself as Crunk Abe Lincoln, which is what I called him as a joke in my own analysis without realizing that that's apparently the official name. He also talks with a weird lisp the whole time, kinda sounds like Kip from Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not in love with it. You get to see some more green screen work. It already does look more like a real studio than in previous episodes. Lloyd's watching Return of the Dragon on his... what is that, an old iPhone? I don't think so. Those menu symbols are all wrong. There's some kind of early Samsung, maybe a Motorola. I genuinely don't know. Tell me if you can identify it. Anyway, I can't believe Peter actually dumped the pennies right on Lloyd. You could easily layer this in post. That's some real indie low-budget filmmaking right there. Do it all in camera. You'd love to see it. Episode 4, Pale and Gaga, opens with Peter in this storage room? Crime scene? And he says he's gotta wear pink spandex underwear, but it's okay because he'll bone a chick while in them. Cringe. And also very 2011 in the humor. Also, the lighting on Lisa Nova is so harsh. Oh my god, they must have got some new lights and not quite knowing how to use them yet because that's bad. And the Little Monsters outfit is basically a lol random costume choice. And the moose looks as glorious behind the scenes as I'd hoped. Thank the moose. And episode 5. I'm noticing a trend of these behind the scenes videos starting with Nice Peter in some sort of liminal space, which that ends immediately in the Bieber Beethoven episode because we don't get this shot until about 25 seconds in. Episode 6 actually starts with this awkward shot of everyone's legs as they're setting up. And they got a real piano. How nice. Peter even talks about how they managed to score a cheap piano just for the production. Anyway, for episode 5, Peter's doing the Hogan voice for most of the video, and he's really proud of these new speakers they got, as well as the new larger green screen studio. So I was very correct in feeling like they were consciously upping the production here. He also said he bought a bunch of yellow tank tops so Hulk Hogan could be ripping his shirt in every shot, which obviously didn't get fully incorporated in the end product. I think he rips it just the once. You also hear a brief bit of what must have been an early version of the Kim Jong-il rap, same lyrics but different vocal delivery. If it showed up behind the scenes, it means it must have been re-recorded relatively late in the production process. And yes, confirmed, the Hulk Hogan outfit was a bit of a mess to make and shoot with, and everyone on set also thought it was the goofiest thing ever. Also, Peter goes and grabs some Papa John's in costume, so that's funny. And he has to pay with a personal check? That's insane, but I guess 2011, that's still not 100% out of the question. Alright, phew, that's out of the way. So, what did we learn from all this? Well, not a whole lot, to be honest. I was hoping these would be a bit more enlightening regarding the actual creative process. Instead, they seem to mostly just be behind-the-scenes B-roll footage with Peter periodically adding something noteworthy. But still, like I said, I'll make sure to incorporate anything interesting from ERB2 going forward, and who knows, maybe in later seasons we'll get to learn a lot more from them. Now, back to the present.
Justin Bieber!
Okay, Alex Farnham. Who is this guy? No, really, this one's a little bit random. He shows up a lot in the behind the scenes, including probably the best moment of the video where he gets excited about Dos Equis. But with some diving into his channel and digging through over a decade's worth of YouTube posts, I'm pretty sure I get this choice now. Back in 2010 and 2011, Alex here was actually decently big on YouTube. He had this series called Mock Stars where he'd do impersonations of celebrities and characters like Ace Ventura and Bam Margera. Naturally, none of this is funny and none of it holds up, but YouTube was a very different place at the time, and having been there, I understand exactly how this was able to rack up views, even if I personally missed the boat on this one. Now, he has one video that must have been the reason for his casting here, in which he does a parody rap as Justin Bieber. It's weird and bad. He wears a diaper for a lot of it. Man, early YouTube, am I right? But I assume someone at ERB must have come across this and decided, for whatever reason, that it was high quality and the Diaper Man is the dude for the role. For what it's worth, they must have enjoyed working with him because Farnham would later in 2011 release a Jack Sparrow parody rap which features Nice Peter and which would also become his most popular video on his channel. So oddly enough, we're also witnessing this man's entire career peak. There it is, Alex Farnham's shining hour. Life is bizarre sometimes. Anyway, I'll personally take the Lonely Island's Jack Sparrow any day, but I guess props to him for being first to the idea. Actually, second to the idea. I was wondering if this was another case like the Sarah Palin bit, but this time actually SNL was first timing-wise. You get lucky, SNL, you got lucky. Honestly, really solid costuming on Beethoven. You can really see the budget ramping up on this episode and where that new money is being spent.
Look what the cat dragged back from the dead. Man, it looks like Chewbacca wiped his ass on your head.
Against my better judgment, I'll give this a point. I know it's flawed because Chewbacca has brown hair and Beethoven portrayed here and in the more famous paintings of him has gray hair. To be fair, I do think he did have brown hair when he was younger, but we all know ERB didn't do that kind of research on this one. But still, the insult against his messy hair is just viscerally funny enough to me that it's worth a point even if it is a stupid joke.
I'm the next Michael Jackson. You smell like Betty White.
What? I mean, what? The next Michael Jackson, I get that part. When Bieber came out, the media would compare the two all the time because MJ also started young and there was always speculation where Bieber's career would lead. In hindsight, that's all kind of funny. It was really overblown. Even if Bieber was and is a solid singer, it's obvious that My World wasn't as solid a career launch pad as the Jackson 5's output or Off the Wall. And I don't think Yummy was what anybody pictured for the future back in 2011. Sure, Despacito is huge, but it ain't no Billie Jean is all I'm saying. But anyway, you smell like Betty White? I don't even know how to process that diss. It's hard, especially in the present day, imagining anybody trying to use a comparison to the universally beloved national treasure, the late great Betty White, as an insult. But I guess trying to get back in the headspace of 2010, I think maybe Betty White was being used as kind of a generic old lady reference with a moderately famous face attached. You smell like an old lady is still a weird insult, especially when Beethoven here is already an old man and you could just use old man smell as an insult instead. It's a really weird one, and I think I'll take a point off because it's just too bizarre of a diss.
You some aspirin. You're catching Bieber fever tonight.
Oh, Bieber fever. There are some people out there either too young or too out of the know with pop culture who missed that pandemic. I won't bore you with all the specifics, it's just another music phenomenon in the long tradition of Listomania, Beatlemania, the BTS army, basically a hyper-intense fan base driven primarily by younger, middle-class girls. Honestly, I wish it was crazier, because in hindsight, it was mostly just a lot of screaming and crying, but without a singular standout moment, I feel like it kind of faded from public consciousness by now. Good filler, but not really point-worthy.
Because my voice is incredible and your music is terrible. Who even listens to classical anyway?
Ooh, this could have easily been a three-pointer. According to current streaming data, about 0.9% of all streams are classical music, putting it 0.1% ahead of the last place jazz. I imagine that number wasn't much better in 2011, so factually, this is just a true diss. Unfortunately, the delivery kind of undercuts it. Farnham's portrayal of Justin Bieber has an element of ironic detachment that doesn't lend itself to the format. As the show goes on, everyone at ERB would clearly become more comfortable fully committing to the bit, which is necessary to sell this kind of thing, but here, with this tone problem, we'll just have to settle for the 1 point.
And Elise wants to do me.
For Elise, or Bagatelle 25, sure, why not? Which is what is being used as part of the backing track, is one of Beethoven's most famous compositions, most notably used as the backing music for the Tenacious D song Classico, and probably in some other media, but who cares about that? There are theories as to the identity of Elise, but none confirmed, and it will likely forever remain a bit of a mystery. Even more fascinating to me is that For Elise wasn't released in or even near Beethoven's lifetime. It was essentially discovered like 40 years later while they were going through his old stuff. Anyway, this is a somewhat roundabout way to say I'm Mr. Steal Yo Girl. And it's made a bit weird by the fact that Justin was like 16 or 17 at the time of this, and having a minor tell you they'll steal your girl, that's an odd thing. It's almost a point, but I just can't do it.
And now that you're right next to me, I can understand why they used the dog to play you in the movie.
Beethoven is a 1992 American cinematic classic which spawned... No, this can't be right. Really? Okay, sure. It spawned 7 sequels and a 90s animated series and was conceived by John Hughes, who went under a pseudonym because of some sort of behind-the-scenes drama with Universal. Beethoven in these movies is a big ol' Saint Bernard dog. We can debate whether or not Saint Bernards are cute, but being called uglier than a Saint Bernard has a sting as an insult, so definitely Bieber gets a point here.
Sit down, son, and let me give you a music lesson.
Speaking of music lessons, I do think it's a really cool touch that they switched over to Beethoven's Fifth, aka the Fate Symphony, aka the Judge Judy theme, for Beethoven's verses. ERB hadn't really used the music itself for characterization until now, and it's really a no-brainer in a series that, at its core, is based around music.
Ask Bach, I've got more cock than Smith & Wesson.
So, Smith & Wesson is the famous firearms manufacturer, and cocking is something you do to a gun, but there's the double entendre about, well, you know. And Johann Sebastian Bach is of course another famous classical composer, so it all seems like it should be a really solid line. Here's the problem. Bach would know nothing about Beethoven's cock because they weren't contemporaries. Bach died when Beethoven was 5, and Beethoven wouldn't know about Smith & Wesson because he'd been gone 30 years by the time they were founded. This really should be a negative point because it makes absolute zero sense and goes against the entire premise of the series. It's a rap battle of history, and the line completely fails at the history part. But I have to hand it to Nice Peter. His performance is perfect and the actual structure of the line is immaculate. So we'll just save the line from being a negative and even it out to a neutral.
Never say never, you'll never be forgetting.
Never Say Never was a big early Justin Bieber hit and also the name of his 2011 movie, 3D concert film. Also insane to me that this battle dropped less than a month after it was released. Like, you could go to a theater and watch Never Say Never and then watch this on your iPhone right after. Right after. What a time to be alive.
I crafted masterpieces that will last throughout the ages. Your music gets you bitches on your Facebook page.
Listen, I get what it's trying to do, and the performance is still good, but the way this is worded is almost a cell phone. Like, you could easily re-emphasize the line and go, sure, you crafted historically significant work, but my music gets me girls. And it would be a diss against Beethoven. Also, another issue, claiming your music will last longer in the public eye when we've already established that only 0.9% of music being listened to is classical comes off as making a brag you can't back up. So we'll have to take the point off here.
I'm committing verbal murder in the major 3rd degree.
I'm giving a point here. This is actually a really creative and witty line, and I can't even tell how aware they were of it when they wrote it. So, first off, third-degree murder, also known as manslaughter, is basically accidentally killing someone. So Beethoven saying he's accidentally killing the beat is pretty goofy, albeit fitting in this case. But I'll allow it for managing to work the major third into the rap. In music, the major third is basically just a certain interval between notes. It usually gives a bright, cheerful, and upbeat vibe to a song. When the Saints Go Marching In and Kumbaya use the major third. However, possibly the most famous example of the major third happens to be, you guessed it, Beethoven's Fifth, aka the piece of music currently being used as the backbone for the track. Again, I suspect this is a case of accidental genius. My gut says they just found a random musical term, but maybe not. Maybe it really was that brilliant on purpose. And in any case, it has to be worth a point.
My name is Beethoven, motherfucker. Maybe you heard of me.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of him. Then again, maybe you haven't. I have to go back to what we've just established, that factually almost nobody is listening to classical music. And sure, streams aren't the sole indicator of relevancy. It is Beethoven, his music is used commonly throughout media, and he's taught in schools. But still, it just comes across as bragging without the ability to back it up. After all, part of the point of my show here on YouTube is adding context lost through time. Frankly, Beethoven isn't even that old when it comes to classical composers, and at this moment in time, I wouldn't feel comfortable assuming everyone in the room knows Beethoven, and I'd feel less comfortable assuming everyone in the room knew anything more than the last name. And in 2011, I don't know, if I had to choose who the average American would recognize, my money's on Bieber.
Not the St. Bernard version, I'm the real OG.
Not awarding a point, but you all know by now how much I love when they reference the other rapper's previous verses in their own verse.
You wanna trade blows? You can't even hit puberty.
Yikes. So yeah, kind of like with the Lady Gaga episode, this comment brings up some of the ugly attitudes of the time. So of course, with a rabid fan base, Justin Bieber had his fair share of haters as well, and a big insult used at the time was calling him feminine or metrosexual, or just straight up calling him gay, but in the bad way. This insult of basically, you sound like a girl, feeds into that. It was an insult that was considered inherently funny in 2011, but it's aged poorly. So it will have to be a negative point here. Also, poor Lloyd with just nothing to do once again.
Got Kim Kardashian in my bed backstage.
Again, we've established that Justin Bieber is about 17 at this time. And Kim K, while sure, she'd be one of the hottest celebrities at that moment, she was about 30. I'm docking a point because this whole thing starts to get a bit weird. We've got a literal minor bragging about his sex life, and that's not where you want to end up with a rap battle.
When's the last time your music got anybody laid?
I'm giving this a neutral because I feel like we've kind of reiterated the same point about classical music not really being popular anymore too many times, and it's getting a bit stale.
I got a concert in 5, so there's not much time left.
Sure, yeah, he's so in demand that he has to get to the next show. That's fine. But the giggle, what the f*** was that? I hated it so much, I'm taking a point off.
What else can I say? Your own music made you deaf.
Oh, thank God, we at least have one three-pointer in here. But yeah, what else can he say? Beethoven famously experienced severe and swift hearing loss in his late 20s and early 30s, leaving him deaf for the majority of his time as a composer. The insult, "your music is so bad it made you deaf," is a softball, but a softball is still a home run if you hit it right, and I think this hit it right.
I would smack you, but in Germany we don't hit little girls.
Again, another insult that aged poorly. Also, sure, I guess on some level Beethoven was German, but he was really more Austrian. And also, these nations didn't even really exist the same way back in 1800, so maybe I'm too in the weeds here.
And I'm glad I'm deaf so I can't hear that piece of in my world.
This could have been a good rebuttal line, but it wasn't worded well. Also, I think Nice Peter is trying to up the intensity on verse 2, but it just results in this awkward, choppy flow that undercuts the lines.
There's a crowd of millions waiting to hear my symphonies.
Again, is there a crowd of millions? The data just isn't backing up that claim. But a crowd of millions would have been waiting to hear Justin Bieber in 2011.
You want to be a little white usher? Here, show them to their seats.
Ooh, right at the end, squeaking in a three-pointer. Great double meaning. Obviously, he's saying he deserves to be an usher and not a star, but second, Usher, the R&B star who was huge in the 2000s, was the guy who signed Bieber and basically discovered him on YouTube and got his career started. An insult against Bieber was that he was basically just an Usher surrogate without unique and original talent. I'd say this obviously isn't at least fully true, but it's pretty hard in a battle rap context. Also, in the behind the scenes, we learned that the Usher hat is actually a wicker bowl DIY'd with a layer of velvet. Neat. In my memories, this battle was much better than it is on rewatch. Uneven is probably the word of the day. Good theming, good production, decent enough performances, but some bad bars that just stink up the place. As with previous battles, my bias definitely colored my opinion when I watched this originally. I was the absolute wrong demographic to be a Bieber fan. It's not like I was some sort of classical music head at 12, but more I was just inherently against a Bieber. But analyzing it now, Beethoven kinda tanks in this battle by not saying much beyond "I'm Beethoven and you're not," which can only get you so far. Also notable, there's less growth here than the previous battles, but that's to be expected. By now they've more or less locked in the format and are now focusing on polishing. That said, the increased focus on the backing music itself during the battle is a big step, and it will be cool to see how that new philosophy impacts the music in later battles. Speaking of, up next time we have a more cerebral episode, a battle not just of music, but of mind. Will it be the hair or the wheelchair that ends up dominant next time? We'll see. Catch you next time, and thanks for watching. Send me a tip at my Ko-fi link below, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you next time. Welcome back to the back rooms.
Albert Einstein!
It's MC Mr. Napkins in the house, woo woo, and he's putting on another goddamn mustache in an ERB2 video. If I had a nickel for every mustache, I'd have at least 15-20 cents by now. And with that, we give a hearty welcome aboard to Zach Sherwin, who has actually been aboard this whole time behind the scenes. He was a fellow Mission Improbable pal with Peter and Lloyd and has been involved in the writing since, I believe, day one. Zach already had his own comedy rap thing going on with his MC Mr. Napkins persona, so he slots into ERB as an on-camera performer pretty smoothly. I mean, he basically has the exact same background and skill sets as Lloyd and Peter, so if they can do it, he should be able to as well. He will go on to be one of the most prolific and consistent guest rappers we see in this series, so it's fun to have him here in his relatively humble on-camera introduction. And this shot of Peter here, this is so funny, it's sending me. He goes on to explain that one of the harder parts of this production was making sure he was seated correctly as Hawking. They tried really hard to make sure that his positioning was accurate to real life. They really wanted to make it clear that they were doing a parody portrayal of the man Stephen Hawking and not trying to make fun of his disabilities or those with disabilities in general. And honestly, I think that care really comes through. I never have once while watching this episode felt that there was any sort of hate or ableism or mean-spiritedness towards Hawking or wheelchair users in general. It's clearly done with respect and tact, and I really appreciate it. Good job to everyone involved. And speaking of everyone involved, here we get a formal introduction to Mary, best known as Mary Doodles. She is an on-again, off-again talent throughout the show's history, being most heavily involved in costuming and art design for seasons 1 and 2. She would go on to have some periodic acting appearances down the line, and also she has her own art channel on YouTube where she most prominently does her Epic Drawings of History, which is an ERB-related art show. See, this is the stuff I want to see from behind the scenes on ERB2. This is what I want. I don't want to see a mustache getting glued on for the 6th or 7th time. Mary explains how they built the Hawking wheelchair. It's actually pretty simple but elegant. It's a real working electric-powered chair that they attached a music stand onto with a decorative wire to add the illusion of technology. I love this type of low-budget filmmaking that they're doing in Season 1.
When I apply my battle theory, minds are relatively blown. So take a seat, Steve. Oh, I see you brought your own.
Welp, coming out the gate swinging today. First off, great intro incorporating a bit of the language of Einstein's general relativity theory, but let's just get into it. If you're going to diss the disabled, you better not fall flat with it. And this did not fall flat. It's a textbook sick burn centering on Stephen Hawking being wheelchair bound. It's one of those disses where you feel like a horrible person for laughing, but you're still laughing, and it's an easy 3-pointer for me to start the battle.
What
Jesus Christ, back-to-back bangers. You've got the robot Wall-E from the Pixar movie of the same name. You've got the Speak and Spell, which is this weird children's learning toy from the 80s. Okay, apparently, and as of 2019, it's back. Sure, why not? Anyway, an incredibly insulting yet crudely accurate way to describe Stephen Hawking's robotic voice, and it has to be another three-pointer here.
I'll school you anywhere, MIT to Oxford.
I get it, trying to do a pun with a couple prestigious smart people universities in there, but it's just kind of a neutral line.
All your fans will be like, that was Hawkford.
Oh, awful pun. And it's using that format that they used in terrible kids comedies where someone goes, awkward. And then if it's a trailer in the early 2000s, it would be followed by a fart joke and then followed by a scene between the main character and the romantic love interest. It's bad. And they just had some sort of weird war flashback apparently, so we're taking a point off.
I'm as dope as two rappers, you better be scared. Cause that means Albert E equals MC squared.
I'm torn. The line delivery is a bit clunky, but it does check my boxes for a solid line. I mean, you have to incorporate E equals MC squared somewhere in there if you're using Albert Einstein, and I guess I don't know how much better you could work it into the battle, so I'll give it a point, but just barely.
You've got no idea what you're messing with here, boy.
The auto-tune is probably the best way they could have portrayed Stephen Hawking. It would be tough to rhyme properly while dealing with the cadence of the actual vocal software style, but you can't just have Stephen Hawking, someone who famously uses computerized speech, start talking in a regular voice. It's a good creative solution. Shame he doesn't say anything really interesting in these first bars, though.
I got 12-inch rims on my chair, that's how I roll, y'all. You look like someone glued a mustache on a troll doll.
I'm not incredibly impressed by the size of his wheelchair rims, but we'll give a point for the Troll Dolls diss. Trolls being a popular doll from at least the 1960s that has this famous big hairstyle and ugly look. Most modern audiences probably know Trolls best from the hit film Trolls World Tour, but the battle actually predates the Trolls cinematic universe, so at this time this was actually more of a retro toy reference.
I'll be stretching out the brine like gravity stretches time.
Gravitational time dilation is a theory actually put forth by Einstein and later built upon by other physicists including Hawking. Not really point-worthy, but a great use of relevant material for a reference in this rap.
When you try to put your little pea brain against this kind of mind.
Wow, okay, I almost completely missed this. I mean, this is something that's gone over my head until literally right now while overanalyzing these battles point by point. But I was like, why is P-brain spelled like that? Turns out this is actually a brilliant little play on physics words. And I won't pretend I fully understand the science and math here, but to the best of my abilities, what I've gathered is that a brain, in physics, is used in string theory to denote dimensional points. A P-brain is a point particle and can mean a zero-dimensional object. In other words, Hawking called Einstein a no-brain in science speak. Even if this isn't 100% accurate, I'm just so blown away that the ERB team made a reference like this back in season 1, and I'm giving a 3-pointer, no questions asked.
I'm the best, I'm the Snoop Dogg of science.
I'm not sure Snoop Dogg is the best as far as rap goes, but sure, he's up there, and the Snoop Dogg of science goes hard as a line, so I'm willing to award a point.
I'll be dropping mad apples on your head from the shoulders of giants.
Standing on the shoulders of giants is a quote associated with Isaac Newton, famous early physicist credited with the theory of gravity, which he famously was inspired to create by observing apples falling from his apple tree, often morphed into a humorous children's story where Newton was actively conked by an apple, with the brain damage giving him a eureka moment. I'm mostly impressed with the weaving of scientific references into the battle rap, but I'll give another point here, I like it.
I'm a giant whose shoulders you'd have stood on if you could stand.
It's not a 3-pointer. The wheelchair jokes are getting stale at this point, and the wordplay here wasn't the greatest. But I'm still giving a point because it plays off Hawking's verse, and I always respect that. But this one was pretty close to neutral for me.
I'll give you a brief history of pain with the back of my hand.
A Brief History of Time is of course Stephen Hawking's most famous work, at least in the public eye. This line, I don't know man, I'm not particularly impressed by Einstein's threat to pimp slap Stephen Hawking. I mean, at the end of the day, you're threatening to hit a guy in a wheelchair. It could be a neutral, but I kind of feel a negative point. Maybe it's standing out as particularly bad because of how many great lines we've had in the battle, but it just feels a bit lazy.
You can't destroy matter or me, for serious!
Oh, don't mind it. Casual law of quantum mechanics knowledge drop here. No big deal. No points on it yet, but this will come into play with the next set of bars.
Ripping holes in you bigger than the hole in your black hole theory was!
Okay, again, I'm just so impressed that these guys back in 2011 actually did their research on this. So one of Stephen Hawking's most famous theories is black hole theory. It's a significant breakthrough because it basically links quantum physics, which had been stuck purely in the theoretical physics realm, to the physical world through gravity, I think. Again, doing my best here, not a scientist. Please learn me something in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to gain a better understanding of these things. Anyway, while groundbreaking, a big flaw in the black hole theory was that it requires matter to be destroyed, which is impossible in our current understanding of the universe. Or at least this was a big flaw in Hawking's initial presentation of the theory. From what I understand, the issue was solved relatively quickly and was more a problem with Hawking's explanation in Brief History of Time than in the math itself. Basically, in the writing, it was simplified a little bit, and that simplification caused an issue. But still, even if it's not the most technically accurate diss, the historic and scientific reference is impressive, the performance from Zach Sherwin is great, and I'm willing to give it 3 points here.
There are 10 million particles in the universe that we can observe. Your mama took the ugly ones and put them into one nerve.
I think this is an accurate enough amount of particles. I don't know, Google says there's Eddington number or 10 to the 80th power amount, so if what Nice Peter multiplied here is wrong, I don't really care enough to correct it. But the yo mama joke that follows, it's just a prime choice insult. Easiest 3 points of my life.
You wanna bring the heat with the mushroom cloud you're making.
It's a decent little reference to Einstein's work being a foundation for the creation of the atomic bomb, but not quite point-worthy.
I'm about to big raps from scratch like Carl Sagan.
Lloyd making his cameo appearance here as Carl Sagan, of course, another famous physicist. Sagan has a famous quote that goes something like, "If you want to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe." Which I guess makes sense? I don't know. Sagan's kind of weird. Interesting and important figure, no doubt, but he was kind of half scientist, half spiritual guru. Anyway, I appreciate the cheeky little Carl Sagan reference, but I don't think it's quite worth a point. Also, when it comes to Lloyd as Carl Sagan, I found there to be a wild behind-the-scenes revelation in ERB2. While chewing on some cold pizza, Peter notes that they always try to make sure Lloyd shows up somewhere in each episode. So these little cameos, rather than evidence of Lloyd being sidelined, have actually been their way of making sure he's as present as possible. Peter notes that it comes down to an issue of them needing to have performers who look the part, which is fair. Especially with them being still on a very low budget at the time, they could only do so much with costuming, makeup, prosthetics, and it would have been much easier and cheaper to find a look-alike at any given time. Remember, not everyone is as lucky as me to be a 2D cartoon drawing who can shapeshift into any parody at will. Still, part of me wishes they could figure out a way to give Lloyd a bar or two in these episodes, and I know they'd get better at that in later seasons, so I can't be too harsh here. Growing pains and all that. Also, Lloyd admits that he knows jackety shit about who Carl Sagan is. It's just something that his dad apparently told him about back in the day, and that was it. And then Mary says that they had to gaff tape this wig to Lloyd's head, because he has no hair. Ouch. And of course, last time it was Dos Equis, this time it's Tecate. You gotta love those Mexican loggers.
And while it's true that my work is based on you, I'm a supercomputer, you're like a TI-82. Ooh.
The TI-82, a basic graphing calculator from the 90s. A supercomputer, a more generic term, but obviously any supercomputer will be able to do more than a TI-82. Not the most impressive line to end the battle, but it's a decent little diss that fits the theme, so I'll award a point. Holy hell, my brain hurts from all the education on this one. Really fun battle though, probably my favorite of the series so far. Let's not forget, we're still here in Season 1, and each new episode is still growing the formula. At a glance, it's less obvious exactly how this one shakes things up, but in Episode 7 here, it's the first time we've had two figures who aren't actors, aren't politicians, and aren't contemporary pop stars. Although I guess in a few short years, Stephen Hawking's life story would get the walk-hard treatment with the theory of everything, so maybe he is kind of a pop star, but the point is you have two people not specifically famous in 2011, but instead famous in, well, you know, history, which is, again, 20% of the series title by word count and a third of it by letters. It's subtle, but to me it also represents a realization on Peter and Lloyd's end that the scope of this series could be expanded far beyond what they've been doing up to this point. Basically, you know, Chuck Norris, Justin Bieber, Bill O'Reilly, those guys are small potatoes, but two titans of physics, two people famous for their brilliant minds and scientific legacies. Now that's an actual epic rap battle for the ages. The performances are great, and the quality of the raps and the visuals continues to improve. And although we've had previous battles decided by 1 point, this one felt like the closest battle so far, especially since so many positive points got awarded over the course of it. We even got into double digits this time, with Nice Peter scoring that 10. And honestly, I could see Einstein taking the W, or at least tying if my feelings on some of these lines nudge slightly. So I don't blame anyone for thinking I'm wrong on this one, but oh well, them's the breaks. I really like this all around. It feels like everyone's really getting the hang of the format and production. It feels like they've really worked through a lot of the early growing pains of the show. It seems like it should be kind of smooth sailing. We've hit that halfway point in the season, and everything afterwards should just keep getting better, right? Wrong. We all know. This is actually a false sense of confidence and overwhelming amounts of hubris speaking. There is, in fact, quite a bit more pain awaiting us, and next episode we'll get to experience that. Keep an eye out for golden eggs and golden hordes, and oh boy, I can't wait. Like, subscribe, comment. I really appreciate the support from all you guys, and catch you next time. Oh, you know we're off to a great start when the first thing we get to see is Epic Lloyd and some mild brown face.
What's it? The Easter Bunny!
And you know we're off to an even better start when the second thing we get to see is this nightmare. Looks like brownface will be the least of our worries today. We haven't even started yet, but this battle, this is just whack, man. I'd also like to point out the behind the scenes isn't much better, as the ERB2 episode on this one begins in the most liminal of liminal spaces with a power outage affecting the studio. Truly, welcome to these backrooms. The real game has now begun. We also get a spooky Bigfoot sighting of Dante Samatamore, which I might be butchering his name, but Peter also just introduces him as Dante on sound, so I don't feel that bad. He'll be important down the line, but we'll pretend he's a random crew member for the moment.
How you gonna battle? I invented hip-hop!
Just take me out back now. End me. So while Khan is suffering from some mild brown face, the second contender here is suffering from being a gay stereotype, and I'm suffering from this terrible, terrible pun. No notes. No notes at all. This is fine. This is so fine.
My little tail swinging and my big ears flopping.
Why'd they do this multiply effect for the tail? And he had to grab his ears to make them flop, and they barely did anyway. It should be neutral because these aren't the worst lines, but I'm mad at these visuals. Yeah, it's low budget, but this is not good. Call it a -0.4 for performance reasons, but yeah, we're taking one off.
The Easter Bunny, baby, I deserve to be arrogant.
But why? I feel like arrogance is the last thing I associate with the Easter Bunny. And then he just doesn't justify it at all. It's so confusing and out of left field. Definitely taking a point off.
You ugly, rapist, pelt-wearing barbarian, ooh!
I guess it's passable, and I can see why the Easter Bunny specifically would have an issue with someone wearing pelts, but the performance still just sucks, and it annoys me that he goes, ooh, right after, like he really did something. Neutral point, I guess. Also related to this line, in the behind the scenes, we have one of the most awkward exchanges where Peter is using the ERB2 camera for the first time ever, and while Lloyd has two women getting him in costume, Peter does an on-the-spot interview bit where he asks Genghis Khan about his SA charges. And Lloyd does not continue the bit. He just goes, which is the right call. Shut that down, because what the are we doing, guys?
What you gonna do? You got a bucket on your head and a Fu Manchu!
Oh wow, yeah, calling a helmet a bucket. Hard-hitting stuff. And yeah, Genghis Khan does have a Fu Manchu. That's the name of the facial hair. And Peter, don't think it'll slip past me that you tried to cop the gin and juice flow with that line. I'm on to you. I know you're standing the D-O-double-G Snoop Doggy Dog. Anyway, neutral point here, I guess, but I'm so close to another negative.
The Great Wall couldn't keep you out of China!
No, it couldn't, which is a point for Khan. That's, like, impressive. He was able to get past a huge wall with his armies. Why are you pointing out a success of your opponent? It's basically a self-burn, so I guess another negative point.
Watch me rub my foot for luck and stick it right up your vagina!
So there's an old myth in many world cultures that if you hang a rabbit's paw in an amulet around your neck and rub it, it will grant you good luck. Now, past the possible self-own of implying that you'll potentially be killed just for your foot, I'm insulted by the rhyming of China and vagina, and the general structure of these bars is pretty terrible. So we're docking yet another point. I mean, yeah, I guess if someone asked me to say a Genghis Khan quote, I'd probably say, well, maybe he yells a lot? I don't know, I won't take a point off, but this does feel pretty lazy as far as opening lines go.
You're the ass about to feel the wrath of Khan.
Okay, I feel like in any normal battle, I'd call this a filler line, but in this case, I'll take what I can get. Sure, we'll give a point for the Star Trek reference.
Silly rabbit, you'll need more than luck.
Honestly, yeah, okay. That's a point. That's like a real point. He referenced the previous verse with the line about the Easter Bunny rubbing his foot, and also referenced the tagline from Trix cereal, which has a rabbit mascot. The rabbit's name is also Trix, by the way, because like pulling a rabbit out of your hat, it's a trick, not important.
You've got 2 giant ears but can't hear that you suck.
All right, we're doing it. It's beautiful. 3 points in a row. Solid diss. This is splendid. Here's a point.
I drive a Mongol horde, your army is weak. What? You're going to attack me with a posse of peeps?
Oh my, and another one. It's self-explanatory really, but obviously Peeps candy is associated with Easter and marshmallows don't tend to be great in combat. Wow, I'm having a good time right now.
I'll bite off your tail and punch your teeth down your throat.
Ooh, hardcore and violent. But since it is Genghis Khan, whose brutality is possibly the most enduring part of his legacy, it is fitting. I think I'll call it a filler line though.
Then butcher your family and make a new code.
Honestly, yeah, we can award a point here. It's another response to the previous verse because the Easter Bunny was like, I'm offended you wear pelts. And Khan's not only like, yeah, I do, but also, yeah, and how about I make another one out of you? Again, pretty hardcore, but we'll take it. Here's a point. I'd like to take a moment here to talk about these portrayals. Lloyd as Khan is not my favorite thing to exist, but at the same time, as long as we stay in the realm of specific character parody and don't get into racial stereotyping, I can live with it. Besides, no Genghis Khan portrayal can be worse than The Conqueror. If you don't know what that is, it's a 1950s movie where Genghis Khan is played by John Wayne. Yes, the cowboy guy. And it sucked so bad, it may have played a hand in driving producer Howard Hughes insane, and it may have also given a majority of the cast and crew early cancer because it was filmed in a nuclear testing area. Honestly, I just wanted an excuse to talk about The Conqueror because some mild racism is about to be the least of our problems. Let's take a look at the Easter Bunny. I guess trying to get into the thought process, maybe they were still at a point where they didn't want to have anyone in a mask, so they had to figure out a way to have Nice Peter's face still visible. And as is obvious by the announcer's sigh, they're trying to do a wink wink, we know this is lame, ironic joke with the Easter Bunny, so maybe the outfit is purposefully bad. But honestly, at that point, just go all in and have the costume be Nice Peter and just some bunny ears and maybe a tail. Have it be as bad as possible if that's supposed to be the point. Don't half commit to the bit. For context, this battle was released on Easter, so that's why they have the Easter Bunny, but they could have and should have chose pretty much anyone but Genghis Khan to rap against him. You could have Cupid or the Leprechaun. This is just... this sucks. And before we continue, I did receive a little piece of breaking news regarding this particular part of the battle. On the scene, we have Poner of the ERB community Discord, who also does his own ERB analysis on the Late Epic channel. Check it out if you can, a link in the description. He was lucky enough to get in contact with Nice Peter to ask about the origin of the Easter Bunny Genghis Khan matchup idea. In an old Reddit AMA from, holy cow, 13 years ago, Peter noted that the idea was a fan suggestion that made him laugh in response to them asking for matchup ideas against the Easter Bunny for the holiday episode. But also, it has been speculated and rumored that the original comment no longer existed, and the one cited as the inspiration was essentially a reenactment. Well, Nice Peter recently confirmed that information for us, and also added that he happened to be thinking about this whole situation on the same day that he was asked. Crazy how things work sometimes. He also called the guy who helped with the comment a good lad, which made me chuckle. Anyways, really cool that Nice Peter is still actively interacting with the fans after all this time, and really cool of Poner to get us this information. This type of behind the scenes stuff is frankly why I even do the show. Check out Lay Epic after watching this video, come on over to the community Discord server and say hi, and let's continue.
Take it easy, baby. No need for this meanness.
Meanness, huh? Guy threatens to eat you and your family, and we're calling it meanness. We're taking a point off for the understatement of the century.
We should keep it peaceful, homeboy. Jesus!
It's fine, but when the filler line is about the best we've had from the Easter Bunny so far, you know you're gonna have a bad time. Alright, and this is future WW Kid here because I need to do a little re-recording, and the sound's gonna be a little bit different because it is raining buckets outside. But I just needed to add something here because these goobers in the back slipped past me on the initial watch and I only caught them in the edit. To be fair, it is kind of a blink and you miss it moment, so I don't feel too bad, but we need to go over them. We have the Easter Bunny's three wise homeboys, I guess. Those being Jesus Christ on the left, the Jesus Rolls from The Big Lebowski on the right, and I guess some generic dude named Jesus in the middle, which is a joke bordering on offensive, but which we'll let slide considering what else we've been subjected to in this battle. Jesus on the left is played by Kurt Schmidt, whose information I primarily found through his LinkedIn profile since he doesn't seem to be much of a public figure. From what he writes about himself, he worked with Maker Studios / Disney for about 12 years, and from what Peter has said, it sounds like that 12 years began with him literally being picked off the street to play Jesus in this video, after which he'd go on to be part of the general camera crew and even get a co-director credit down the line. Basically, he's the luckiest man I've heard of in a while. For the Jesus, we have the aforementioned Dante on sound. Again, for now, we'll pretend he's nobody of particular interest. And in the middle, as a man named Jesus, we have Aaron Zaragoza, who was a production assistant during some of season 1 and a friend of Peter and Lloyd. That's how it goes with small productions. You'll have a friend who helps out for a bit and hangs around the studio, but who isn't like a main part of the crew. Cool to see he got a little cameo though. Anyway, nothing else to add. It doesn't really affect the score, but I just wanted to give a little nod to these three unnamed background characters.
I give people candy. You just like to pillage.
I want to take a point off because this line feels like it could have led to some sort of interesting diss, but I feel like I'm getting numb to the rap at this point, and we'll just say neutral to get on with it.
Why'd you get on my face and go back to your village?
It's giving the same mildly offensive energy as when Lady Gaga told Sarah Palin to go back to her igloo. Only this time there's also an awkward amount of syllables in there. It's not good, and it's a terrible verse closer. So, one last negative point for the road.
From Poland to Korea, I ravaged the land.
That's not technically accurate. The Mongol Empire at its height, led by Genghis's descendants, did in fact reach more or less that extent east to west. But during Genghis's reign, it went from like the modern North Korea-China border over to kind of Kazakhstan's western border with Russia, just around the Caspian Sea area. I won't take a point off because it's an easy enough mistake to make and I don't want to be too pedantic, but he is self-aggrandizing just a bit here.
Now my DNA's in dudes from New York to Japan. Ha!
According to some DNA research, somewhere around 0.5% of the population is descended from Genghis Khan. He had so many children, and he's basically bragging about how successful his lineage became. Which is a scientifically accurate brag, so sure, here's a point. And again, future WW Kid here. For those guys that are all of Genghis Khan's descendants, they are all actually stills of John Na, who is a very important ERB crew member, as he has been the director of photography, which is a pretty important position for the entire series except Lennon O'Reilly. And again, say it with me, that one is the pilot and not the actual episode 1. Good to see him on camera since he's usually the guy on the opposite side of it.
Easter my ass, you're not in the Bible.
The Easter Bunny is, in fact, not in the Bible.
You're a fluffy bitch mascot for Hallmark in denial.
I want to give this 3 points because right now the greeting card and candy industries have definitely removed most cultural significance from the Easter Bunny. But I'll just give 1 because it's a bit more complicated than that, as these things tend to be. So basically, the Easter Bunny began as the Easter Hare, which became a religious figure closely tied to the Virgin Mary in the Northern European Proto-German states in the medieval era. This tradition melded with a Northern and Eastern European tradition of eggs being associated with Jesus' resurrection, somehow the two being tied together through people giving up eggs during Lent. I don't really know, man. People had nothing better to do at the time, I guess. Anyway, when Europeans, especially Germans, immigrated to the United States in the 1800s, they brought these traditions, which became Americanized, into the modern Easter Bunny, similar to how the modern Santa Claus came to be. And that's your history lesson for the day, kids. I hope you liked it. Going into this, I remembered even at the time disliking this episode, and I expected it to be the worst battle ever. And in a way, it just might be. The Easter Bunny is so far easily the worst portrayed, worst sounding, worst looking, and most poorly realized character, and I'll be surprised if it's ever topped in a future episode. That said, I was shocked by how not bad the Genghis Khan portrayal was. Brownface aside, the costume and acting is great, and Lloyd honestly spits some bars. I don't know if he just looks better in comparison, or if Peter's Easter Bunny looks worse, but I'll be blown away if there's a more lopsided battle down the line. But anyway, we made it. We survived. I was, we'll say, hesitant to do this episode, and I was worried I'd be so unwilling to go through with it that it would basically roadblock the entire series. But by God, the unholy deed is done. Now let's wash our hands of sin, grab some tater tots, and charge the cavalry into the next episode where we find out if Bones or Dynamite is stronger. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. This charge into battle opening is really amusing and fun to me. Visually, it's the perfect middle ground between objectively terrible and impressive for a small creator that you want out of early YouTube. And thematically, it's perfect. Obviously, it was probably inspired by Napoleon Bonaparte, having famously led from horseback and utilizing cavalry charges heavily in his military strategies. But I appreciate they went the extra mile and had Napoleon Dynamite's steed be a liger, since the lion-tiger hybrid is the character's favorite animal after all.
Gosh, I can't believe how much of a little bitch you are.
You gotta include the gosh in there. And I just want to say, before I really begin the scoring, I need to express some sympathy towards Nice Peter on this one. Doing a Napoleon Dynamite impression was probably already a bit passé by 2011, since the movie was from like 2004, and it was really more the mid to late 2000s when quoting it and referencing it was kind of at the height of its popularity. On top of that, it's kind of a hard one to pull off in this comedy rap setting without feeling cringe, since in a way it's basically a parody of a parody. You know, a joke on a joke, a hat on a hat. But Nice Peter fully commits and comes out with what I'd consider something pretty solid, and that feels as minimally dated and tonally awkward as possible. So good job, a huge congrats to him.
When it comes to world leaders, you like literally lowered the bar.
Listen, obviously the Napoleonish short jokes have been beaten so far into the ground they've hit the Earth's core. So you're not going to manage a three-pointer from me with that low-hanging fruit. But this is still a pretty funny one, and the delivery is good, so I'm feeling a point.
I'll rip your bones apart, Bonaparte.
Puns. Great. My favorite. Well, it's not that bad, I guess. But no way is it getting a point out of me.
Turn your horse into glue. Welcome to the Battle of Waterloo Part 2.
Love that little fist pump thing here. Great touch. As far as the line, it's all the standard I'm gonna beat you stuff, but with a reference to Bonaparte's final defeat in the Battle of Waterloo, famously chronicled in great detail in the ABBA song of the same name. It's all pretty fine, and I'm on the fence for the point, but just for that fist pump, why the heck not?
I got skills. I'll put you in a half Horatio Nelson.
A half Nelson is a wrestling move. You've probably seen it in some sort of context. Horatio Nelson is the British admiral who defeated Bonaparte's naval fleet at the Battle of Gibraltar. Slapping them together for this pun though, I don't know. It feels kind of messy, kind of dumb, and it doesn't really make sense since Napoleon Dynamite isn't a fighter, unless you count that one Rex Kwon Do class. But a character trait of his is how braggadocious he can be. I'm pretty torn, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do a negative point. My gut just doesn't like the line, it doesn't really gel together and doesn't quite make sense, and even if I can't fully justify it in words, I just take issue with it.
You're the ugliest thing that's ever failed in Russia since Boris Yeltsin.
Alright, point here for sure. It references Bonaparte's Russian campaign of 1812, which was the largest land campaign ever at the time and still stands as one of the largest and most devastating conflicts ever. It also represents probably Napoleon's greatest military failure, whose aftermath essentially caused not just his empire, but his whole life to come crashing down around him. So any mention of it kind of becomes an automatic point in the rap battle, but then adding on a "you're ugly" insult comparing him to Boris Yeltsin, who did a pretty poor job as Russia's post-USSR president, leading to a crippled Russian economy that still has lasting ripple effects to this day, and it's a point, no doubt about it.
You can keep your french fries. I got tater tots, you know?
Huh. Couple things here. Of course, Napoleon Dynamite loves his tater tots. They feature in at least a few notable scenes in the movie. French fries may or may not have originated in France, but that's too pedantic to care about. But gnome? Really awkward short person insult here. I'm tempted to do a negative. I'll keep it neutral, but I just don't particularly think it's a great diss. And tonally, the word kinda sounds bad in the line also. And whatever this face is that Nice Peter's making, I don't love that either. It's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable.
Why don't you crawl back in your little shell? Let's go the heck home!
Okay, nah. I've been letting some of these puns slide, but escargot the heckome is too egregious. Escargot, of course, the famous French dish made of essentially baked snails. Sounds gross, but honestly, I think it's quite delicious. Anyway, just an awful pun. Not a good diss. Terrible way to end the verse. Minus a point.
How dare you address moi, you adolescent whore!
Moi means me in French, which is an explanation for that one guy out there who has just zero linguistic capabilities whatsoever. Adolescent worm is a pretty whack diss. I know they were just trying to get a rhyme with the perm of the next line, so we're calling this a filler line and a neutral point, but just barely. They reached for it with that one.
I am French! You're a buck-toothed nerd with the power!
I don't know, this is a weak diss. Could have used the perm in a harder insult for sure, so again, neutral.
I spit at you hard as the teeth of the llama!
Frankly, I feel like this should have been Bonaparte's opening. Spitting aggressively at someone's feet is a way French people may rudely dismiss someone. I would say a stereotypical way, except it happened to me personally in France on 3 different occasions from 3 different random strangers, so it is on some level a very real thing in that country. But anyway, yeah, would have made a more dramatic entrance. Here, as like the 3rd bar, it feels a bit awkward, and the Tina the Llama mention is just a movie reference and not an actual diss, so neutral again.
Smacking your face till your lips swell up like Le Fondant!
These lines are really just giving me nothing to work with. As far as I know, Napoleon wasn't specifically a famous slapper, and the La Fonda mention is again just another movie reference, and I think maybe possibly racist in this context, so yeah. I guess still neutral? Let's do a negative here. I don't like this line. This is just all disappointing so far.
Doodle up some friends, you gangly freak show!
Is this worth a point? Probably not, but maybe I'm feeling charitable since there's at least a real diss with a relevant reference here. In the movie, Napoleon Dynamite is a bit of a social outcast and he spends a lot of the time in his own world drawing sketches in his notebook. Gangly Freak Show is still a pretty weak burn, but at least it's like middle school vocabulary, so it's something, I guess.
Before I toss you over the mountain like the dreams of Uncle Rico!
Again, I feel like a broken record, but this is just a reference to the movie. Since Napoleon wasn't like a famous shot putter or something that would involve throwing things, it's just not really applicable. Neutral again, I guess.
This bastard's about to see how bad the battle can be!
How bad the battle can be? What? What does that even mean? Yeah, no, I'm sick of these bad bars. That's a negative point.
After this, your buddy Pedro will be voting for me!
Okay, fine. We'll give a point here. Even if it's kind of just another movie reference, the wordplay at least actually sounds good. It's a decent verse closer, and it's like the Napoleon Dynamite reference, so I guess we'll take it.
You freaking exile yourself in your little island and hide!
Ha, that's kind of funny. So Napoleon Bonaparte was famously exiled to islands twice. The first time to Corsica, once he was defeated the first time during the aforementioned Russian campaign, and the second to the tiny Atlantic island of St. Helena after his defeat at Waterloo. It's a great dismissal of Bonaparte's character by Dynamite, while also taking a subtle jab at Bonaparte's historical failures. Definitely worth a point.
Cause this is a rap roller coaster! You're not even tall enough to ride! Ugh.
Are the short jokes getting a little old? Yes. But was this one delivered well? Also yes. So we have to give a point.
I don't even care how many, stupid Prussians you killed!
Prussia, now modern Germany, Austria, Poland, kind of. Middle Europe nations have a confusing history, but anyway, Prussia was one of the big empires opposed to the French during the Napoleonic era, and Bonaparte's armies pretty thoroughly dominated them in most battles. So even if Dynamite doesn't care, I mean, damn, Bonaparte did kill a lot of Prussians. I kinda care, to be honest. I guess neutral line, I can't quite get behind Dynamite, but I do respect the apathy.
Cause to me, you're just the emperor of the lollipop guild.
Bleh, bad. One too many short jokes, and to end the verse on a pretty lame one, it kills the vibe harder than Bonaparte killed those Prussians. The Lollipop Guild is a reference to the Wizard of Oz Munchkin clan, business, cult. They're small, and that's the only relation it has to either Dynamite or Bonaparte. Yeah, I'm taking a point off. It's mid at best, and I hate this face again Peter is making. So if you're like me, I'm sure you've always wondered what the heck Napoleon was saying in French here. Well, according to Google Translate, it's sacre bleu, which is a kind of old school French idiom. It doesn't translate directly, but it's kind of like heavens to Betsy. And then after that, he says, you have a head for blowing up sewer plates. What the fuck? So I dug deeper, and it was hard to find info, especially not related directly to its use in ERB, but I guess it's just basically a silly French insult. More or less, he said, my god, you're so ugly your face explodes the plumbing. I don't get it, but hey, sometimes language is quirky, and I saw a Reddit thread where a guy said this line made him learn French, so it brought some good into the world, I guess. Due to lack of concrete info about the phrase origin, I have my skeptic goggles on that this is 100% a real French idiom, but send me some proof if you've got it because I love etymology. Anyway, I'm not in love with the line since they don't even do any sort of visual gag to give an idea of what Bonaparte's saying, so it's a total miss if you don't know French. At the same time, I'm impressed they did use French for a full line in this way. It's fitting for the character, and I'll give a point more for the technicals than anything else.
I'm going to shove your moon boots right up your poop chute.
Huh. Lloyd's disses this whole battle. I don't know, man. So many really forced uses of wordplay. The moon boots are the big ski boots Napoleon Dynamite's wearing in the movie. I guess maybe poop shoot connects with the previous explode the sewer French line, but nah, it just didn't come together. I'm taking a point off.
I'll whip you so bad I'll make a virgin meringue.
Oh boy, that's dumb, but I'll take it. At least they had a visual for this one. For the non-bakers out there, meringue is a dessert that requires whipped egg whites. It's actually really easy to make if you have an electric beater. And manually, it just takes too much effort. But I recommend making it at home. Cheap and easy as long as eggs aren't $1 bazillion this week, and really delicious. Anyway, off track, but I don't know. Virgin meringue is just kind of funny, I guess.
You're the only type of dynamite that's never going to bang.
Oh, thank God. Finally a debatably great line. Is it a three-pointer though? Well, it connects to the last line, has good enough wordplay. Did I laugh? Yes. Great way to finish the verse? Yeah, it's kind of a mic drop moment, so we'll take it. 3 points here. I felt like I enjoyed Nice Peter's Napoleon Dynamite performance more than Epic Lloyd's Bonaparte, but when it comes to the actual disses, Lloyd's were just a little stronger. Looking at how I did my scores, there's an alternate world where I gave Dynamite a few more neutrals and Bonaparte doesn't get that 3 at the end, but really, best we probably end up with is a tie, so I'm pretty satisfied with giving Lloyd the overall win. Honestly, kind of a disappointing battle overall though. I was pretty bored throughout the whole thing. I kept forgetting to finish writing this script because honestly, I would get through a few bars and then just get disinterested. No joke, I finished scoring the next 2 episodes and writing those scripts before I actually went back and finished this one. If I were tallying up neutrals as well, that category would score higher than the 2 actual rapper scores combined. The battle really is the ultimate of ultimate mid-season slumps, suffering from a lot of shallow raps without substance, surface level references without digging deeper, and just overall being pretty mediocre and forgettable. All in all, I'm unimpressed, and I'm a bit bummed that we've had back-to-back just 2 character Nice Peter versus Epic Lloyd matchups, no guests, no gimmicks, and frankly, they've both kinda sucked. At least the theming here is better than Easter Bunny Con, not that the bar is anything to clear, and it's the first time we see that kinda silly 2 people same names thing that Epic Lloyd apparently loves, but at least it's something connecting them. I wasn't sold on it. But speaking of being sold, don't touch that dial. Next episode, we're giving you a special TV offer. For just 3 easy payments of liking, subscribing, and commenting, we're offering you access to the official scoring of the rap battle of a lifetime. Stay tuned. And speaking of selling things, I do finally have an official Patreon up and running, so go check that out. Link down in the description. Please support the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time. And before we dive into the battle, I just want to give an extra special thank you to Timey for supporting me on Patreon. Timey's been awesome, dropping some extra thoughts and knowledge about the battles. And also, he's got a question for us. Genghis Khan Easter Bunny 2, when? Which is a fantastic question. On the one hand, they nailed it the first time, so I don't see why they'd have to go back. But on the other hand, if Napoleon got a second shot, I don't see why the Easter Bunny can't come back, so let's do it. If you'd also like to support the show, head on down to the description below, and let's get started. Want to know the only thing crazier than putting on a hairpiece in ERB2? Taking hair off. Damn, Lloyd, why you looking so sassy? This man's ready for the runway. He even demands his scarf behind the scenes. You know he's locked in. Colin J. Sweeney. And make sure the J's in there when you Google him, or else you'll get the Good Wife spoilers. He is a hard man to find information on. He is no doubt the first guest so far who's apparently most famous in the public eye for appearing in the epic rap battle. I try not to just use the ERB wiki when researching because that's boring and no fun, and I like stumbling across info on my own, but this is what the guy's IMDb looks like, and this is the full extent of his YouTube channel. I get the feeling that by now he's maybe a bit retired, and even while he was working, it doesn't seem like he was in too many online videos. But despite being a bit of a ghost, he may actually be the most important person in ERB lore, since his main thing was Mission Improbable. Yes, that Mission Improbable, aka the improv troupe home to Lloyd, Peter, and MC Mr. Napkins, where the idea of epic rap battles of history was born. This is him, the god creator, the dude they were searching for in Star Trek V, kneel before the master. Sorry. Got a little carried away. But basically, Colin J. Sweeney, he's the ultimate friend of the show, since he's the guy that presumably taught Lloyd and Peter a good chunk of what they know about comedy, and whose teachings facilitated this whole thing in the first place. So you can bet your sweet Bippy he fits perfectly into this show. And as Billy Mays, he looks the part. We haven't heard the rap yet, but after all, who were Lloyd and Peter but two randos in costume just 9 episodes ago? And now we have the teacher of those randos making his own appearance, and I have a feeling he might be here to teach his students a lesson.
Franklin and this shan't be pretty.
I appreciate the attempt here to capture the kind of old-timey English that we associate with the Founding Fathers. Unfortunately, that image is a bit inaccurate and produced mostly by Hollywood Films, but that's not ERB's fault, that's society's fault, man. Not a point, but I just wanted to give a gold star for working a word like shan't into a rap verse. And if you are interested in the actual differences between colonial English and modern English, I've linked a interesting article I read about it in the description below.
Let me instruct you how we battle in the city of Philly.
Not a point here because this part of the line is just set up, but Ben Franklin, who for the non-Americans out there, or maybe for the Americans too, I don't know how historically literate y'all people are, is one of the most famous US founding fathers and was a highly successful individual in multiple fields. Fascinating guy, really. But for this line here, I just want to clarify that Philly is an acceptable city for him to name drop. While he wasn't West Philadelphia born and raised, he was actually born in Boston, he did move to the city at a young age, and it's the hometown he's most associated with. For more information on Benjamin Franklin, I would highly recommend the historical texts known as Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Rogue, which both feature Ben Franklin much more than you would ever really consider they would.
You couldn't sell Rick James a bag of crack, you're out of practice.
Oh my god. Wow, shots fired. But at Rick James, who was probably just over on the couch. So Rick James, most famous probably for the songs Give It To Me Baby and Super Freak, and for the Dave Chappelle skit, was a famous funk and soul musical legend and an infamous party animal. As far as the actual diss, it's basically a really fancy way to tell Billy Mays he sucks at his job as a salesman, but boy is it fancy enough for a point, because wow is it funny.
My victory's more certain than death or taxes.
I mean, that line's basically a given, as certain as the aforementioned death and taxes. I wouldn't be surprised if it was literally the first set of bars that they came up with in the writer's room. And you have to say it, it's the most famous quote attributed to Franklin, with him writing it to Jean-Baptiste Leroy, who he knew presumably because they were both science guys working specifically on electricity at the time. Franklin didn't even come up with the phrase, it showed up in English literature earlier in the 1700s, but his use of the phrase is the most well-known and mostly popularized it. And for the record, the full quote goes, "Our new constitution is now established. established and has an appearance that promises permanency. But in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Which honestly, seeing the whole quote wildly changes the context of it. It's not some deep philosophy, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek and facetious, and also reveals that Ben Franklin knew the Constitution and the very nature of the United States would inevitably need to change over time. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, death and taxes, rap battle, sure, it's a point.
Fact is, you're a hack, whack, QVC joke.
Hack Whack QVC Joke is honestly a brilliantly written set of bars, and QVC, for the good chunk of people watching who don't know or only vaguely know, it's still going, basically a 24/7 TV channel that exclusively shows items for sale. So more or less a 24/7 commercial, or more accurately a 24/7 sales pitch / TV auction. Very weird, made more sense before the internet, but even then it's odd. To me, same vibes as Sky Mall. Long story short, not really where you want to end up if you want to be a credible, respected person in the video format, but Hack Whack QVC, that wordplay is really where this point is coming from.
You peddle soap that cleans bird shit from my window.
This line always rubbed me slightly wrong, and I never realized why until now, because up front it seems like a solid insult. Billy Mays, who I'll talk more about his backstory and all that as the rap progresses, but he's a pitchman most famous for his marketing of OxyClean, which is a clothing detergent. He also marketed Orange Glow, which is a wood cleaner, Zorbies, which is basically a ShamWow, except not, I guess. It's ShamWow, but it sucks. And Mighty Mend It, which is a glue-type adhesive. Now, notice something? None of these products are anywhere close to glass or window cleaning, except maybe the crappy ShamWow, but that's a stretch. But these were just his famous pitches, right? So I looked at the complete Billy Mays pitch list because surely there's no way he never did a glass cleaner commercial. Except he didn't. Not once. Saws, cutters, the Big City Burger Station, a fly trap, cereal bowls, gardening tools, literally anything except a window cleaner. He did health insurance, a plate with a built-in cheese grater, and a necktie with a hidden spy pocket, but the closest he got to bird window cleaner was a car polish, which is not the same thing. So this diss, while the idea is sound, is factually, verifiably, some freaking how inaccurate. And as a man of science, I'm sure Ben Franklin would understand why we need to take a point off due to the sheer overwhelming data that has been collected against him. Alright, quick addendum to this. While doing further research, I found deep into this OxyClean Miracle Foam commercial a moment where he mentions that the product can even be used for windows, after, of course, only using it on steel and ceramic for the entire rest of the pitch. So this is my bad. I did see that he had a general purpose cleaner on the list, but I assumed it was more for bathrooms and kitchen appliances, but here it is. I guess Mays did in fact at one point peddle window soap. So rescinding that entire rant and awarding the point instead.
I'll craft a lyrical coffin and then spit their nails in.
Listen, I assumed based on this line that Ben Franklin must have been a famous coffin builder or woodworker or something related. I mean, just as Billy Mays seemed like he pitched everything, Ben Franklin seemed like he worked in everything. And I'm sure the dude probably built at least like a wooden chair or something, but from what I can tell, he was never specifically known for this particular skill, so this is kind of a random set of bars. My only explanation is they were trying to portray Franklin as like some extra Ford tough kind of guy. Only he comes off more like the dudes in line at the Salty Spittoon than an actually intimidating man. So I won't take a point off here, but I think maybe this is all just kind of a miss from the writing and directing side of things. It reminds me of Crunk Lincoln from episode 3, but not that bad.
Call me Arthur Miller's son, because it's death of a salesman.
It would be better if Ben Franklin had more direct of a connection to the material being referenced, but I think the wordplay's good enough that it deserves the point.
Billy Mays here with a special TV offer.
It's a great opening line. It's the equivalent of the death and taxes, but on the Billy Mays side. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the second line they came up with in the writer's room. Actually, I mean, this was 2011, and these were just young people with early internet brain rot. Honestly, scratch everything I said about death and taxes. This was probably the first line written for the battle. Anyway, we're talking Billy Mays, who was an incredibly popular commercial pitchman on infomercials starting in the 90s and really gaining fame and pop culture relevance in the 2000s. Billy Mays here with a special TV offer was basically his catchphrase. Obvious, sure, but if death and taxes got the point, this one does too, since it's performed equally well.
Watch me crush this bald, fat, foppish founding father.
Damn, dude, take it easy. It's only your second line of the battle. But yeah, personal appearance disses can be tricky because they have to write a bit of a line between rude funny and rude in bad taste, but I'd say this is an example squarely on the rude funny side. Foppish needs a dictionary explanation though, because it's one of those old-timey words that you've heard but maybe don't know exactly what it means. A fop is basically an insult from the 1700s, so great job on them for the historically applicable language, and it refers to a man who is vain and overly concerned with appearance and is linked closely to the dandy style of the time. And Ben Franklin would have technically been a dandy, and foppish is a very accurate diss for him. So a point here, no doubt. Honestly, hell, we'll do a 3. I'm legitimately impressed by this 2011 YouTube video's historically accurate vocabulary. Also, behind the scenes, we get to see this cardboard table they used for the shot, and man, this just goes so hard. Someone make this their album cover, please.
I'll tell you my awesome auger.
An auger is a gardening tool used to dig holes for planting. The awesome auger is that, except Billy Mays pitched it, so it's automatically better, I guess. Great deeper cut Billy Mays product reference, great diss setup, let's see where it goes.
And so your Quaker oats.
Oh, I guess. Sowing your oats is a saying that kind of means explore the world. It also more literally means planting the oat crop, so at least it relates to the auger, but Ben Franklin wasn't a Quaker. I guess he lived in Pennsylvania where the Quakers most famously are, but he wasn't some major oat grower, and he's not the guy on the Quaker label. It's not even really a diss. Honestly, taking a point off here, this line just really drops the ball.
I'll shoot your rhymes down like a regimental redcoat.
It's fine. At least it's a Revolutionary War reference, but it would be more applicable if this were someone who actually fought in the war like George Washington. Franklin was more on the diplomacy and convention side of things during the war, so it's an okay line, but not really anything point-worthy in this context.
I'm lord of the pitch and leader in home sale.
He's just hyping himself up, but I love the way he says Lord of the Pitch.
You're just a lumpy pumpkin who invented the mail.
Oh, that's a 3. Lumpy pumpkin is again a rude, funny physical insult, and like really funny. That's golden. And while designing the US Postal Service is certainly an achievement on Ben Franklin's end, the way Mays is able to dismiss it is done so well and a hallmark of success in a rap battle. Basically, when your opponent is legitimately factually impressive and you're still able to cast them in an unfavorable light, that's when you've really nailed it.
Benny's got kite and key, but you're in for a shock.
Another good setup here, referencing Ben Franklin's famous electricity experiment, which is simplified in pop culture as his attaching a key to a kite in a thunderstorm to prove something. Alright, before we keep going, let's clear the air on this one. And as with the Einstein-Hawking episode, I'm no scientist, but I'm doing my best to understand and explain. So, Ben Franklin did not get shocked by lightning holding a kite. That would be obviously stupid, and he would have just died. They knew in the 1700s that lightning could zap things, and they knew that it could kill you, and they knew metal conducted it. What they didn't know at the time was what exactly lightning was made of and what caused it to occur in the first place. So, Ben Franklin, one of the foremost scientists studying electricity, pieced from his experiments that electricity and lightning seemed to share similar properties. So the experiment that he performed with the key was basically done to prove his hypothesis that lightning and electricity were caused by the same forces, and it turned out to be a success. The key, in fact, developed a static charge during the storm and released an electric spark when he brought it down for observation, confirming that the conditions to create lightning were the same as the conditions that created electricity in his previous experiments. And that's science, baby. I feel like Bill frickin' Nye out here. Anyway, let's see if Billy Mays pulls this one together.
When I strike you with bolt from my lightning rod cock.
Yeah, he did. Best line in the episode. So funny. Sadly, the lightning rod cock is not a real Billy Mays pitch product, but it doesn't matter. This is an easy 3-pointer.
Stop! I protest these intolerable rap!
I'm really impressed by this one. This is a reference to the Intolerable Acts, which were a series of laws that the British government enacted against the city of Boston in response to the destruction of goods during the Boston Tea Party. The acts were aimed essentially at forcing the city to repay the East India Company, which was basically a government-owned trade monopoly, for the destruction of that tea and other goods, and also was aimed at teaching the protesters a lesson. Instead, it horribly backfired and was pretty much the final straw that caused the high-ranking individuals in the colonies to call for a convention to discuss declaring independence. So yeah, great reference to history, and Ben Franklin comparing Mays' raps to Intolerable Acts actually kinda packs heat.
It takes just one easy payment for me to whoop your ass.
It was common in TV infomercials such as the ones Mays pitched on for the price of a product to be advertised as X amount of easy payments of X amount of money ending in 99 cents. So for example, 3 easy payments of $19.99, which is a bit weird to me. Like, I'm used to long-term loan payments for things like cars and school, but what, you just give them your bank info and they charge your bank account $19.99 a month for 3 months or something? No wonder old people get phone scammed. If that's the world you grew up in, you'd be much less suspicious of weird offers and random charges to your bank account. Still just wild to me though. Anyway, funny use of the reference. Whoop your ass with the screen shake effect is funny. Here's a point.
Cause I'm mint, I'm money, I'm an educated gentleman.
Mostly just hyping himself up, but he is on the 100, and that is a solid flex, so we'll give a point.
So join or die, Bill, cause it's all about the Benjamin.
The join or die slogan is actually a phrase Franklin himself created and popularized by publishing it in his newspaper. Its original use was as a call for united action within the colonies in regards to the French and Indian War, and later it became adopted by the revolutionary cause, since it was equally applicable in that situation. Really cool reference that they were able to sneak in. What's not cool is referencing a Diddy song right after, but that is, again, society's fault, man. So overall, we'll get Ben a point here.
But wait, there's more! Yes, sir.
Where were you when they built a ladder to heaven? I don't know what it says about me or about American society or what. There's many important things I've forgotten in my life. But I'll always remember that I was in gym class on the basketball court when my friend told me Billy Mays, the OxyClean guy, died of a heart attack. Granted, I learned this not actually when he died in June 2009, but in August when that autopsy report dropped. But still, crazy to think that the death of a commercial pitch guy could permeate culture that way.
Anyone out there who can finish this battle?
I can.
Okay, we have Nice Peter here as the Sham Wow guy, who Peter notes behind the scenes wasn't such a stretch for him to play since he already kinda looks like him. Oh cool, and certainly not a haunted picture in the background. Anyway, the ShamWow guy's real name is Offer Shalami, better known as Vince Offer or Vince Shalami. And he has lived more of a wild life than you'd expect and is in contention for the second most famous pitchman ever, with his more aggressive pitch style often being compared to the more upbeat Mays, and with ShamWow being a direct competitor product to the Zorbies that Mays had pitched. And I had some ShamWows growing up, and those things kinda rock, to be honest. I think this character is a great choice for the second ever ERB tag team battle, and the way we have him picking up the torch left by Billy Mays holds actual dramatic weight, even in this absolutely goofy internet rap battle setting.
You follow me, camera guy? Cause it's about to get furious.
You Following Me Camera Guy is kind of Vince Offer's equivalent to the Special TV Offer and Death and Taxes lines. It's not quite as iconic, but I gave those 2 points for the vibes and performance alone, and I'll do the same here. It's still great.
You're gonna love my nuts until you're bifocal curious.
This cracked me up. So this is actually a bit of a double reference. The bifocals line is more obvious. Ben Franklin actually invented bifocal lenses in the late 1700s, with bifocals being basically glasses that assist with both near and far vision. But the Love My Nuts line is actually not just a reference, but a direct quote from Vince Offer's Slap Chop commercial, which is as unhinged as you can imagine from this image alone.
It's worthless. Forget about it.
So point here, great use of a relevant reference.
Your boy George chopped down trees. You couldn't break a piece of balsa.
This is a reference to George Washington's famous fable about the cherry tree and not being able to tell a lie. Pretty dumbass American folk story, honestly, that for whatever reason everyone gets taught as a kid, but whatever. And then balsa wood is famously soft and easy to cut through. It's often used for like wood carving and other art. Again, this would all make much more sense if Ben Franklin was actually in some way famous for wood carving or something, but here it feels a bit out of left field. Neutral because it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the line is still fun to say and perform well, so it kind of cancels out.
Slap chop your face, make a double chin salsa.
Nah, so remember that line between funny physical insults and just plain rude ones? Well, this is just rude. Ben Franklin has nothing to do with salsa. Slap chopping doesn't even quite make sense as a phrase, although it is that product that he was selling, so it gets a pass. But he's just saying you're fat, which is a pretty lame insult. So slap chopping Vince back with a negative point.
It's worthless. Forget about it.
Your style's so broke, they call you Poor Richard.
Ooh, I'm torn. Poor Richard was a pseudonym Ben Franklin used for his series of almanacs, which was kind of a parody of traditional farmers' almanacs. Basically, it was his alt account where he'd do his shit posting. So the name was already kind of used as a joke, and Vince using it as an insult here kinda doesn't work because of it. But also, when you're not too far in the history weeds, it is some decent wordplay and a decent diss. I don't know. I'm feeling charitable, so sure, here's a point.
He's bad enough, I gotta see you every time I tip a stripper.
Oof, yeah, no. Sure, he's bragging about his wealth, but strippers are not something Vince Offer should be associating with his name, considering his fraught history with them. So this amounts to a self-burn and a negative point.
Rich against the founding fathers just too bad. Cause after this, America's gonna lose a dad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just a random physical violence threat. Not terrible, but pretty mid as far as closing lines go. I'll keep it neutral, but it's a disappointing finish to the battle. Wow, now those are some scores. Really, Lloyd does great as Ben Franklin, and Peter, he does alright as Vince Offer, but the show stealer here is Colin J. Sweeney. It really is kind of refreshing to get a guest that isn't necessarily a celebrity or a fellow YouTube personality or someone related to Maker Studios. Sweeney is clearly just someone who lives and breathes performance comedy, and that quality oozes throughout the battle. For a guy who amounts to a total rando if you don't do some actual background research, he's out here landing not one, not two, but 3 triples. It's one of the best performances we've seen up to this point in the show, and the craziest part, he did it all in just one verse. So really, an outstanding job. I sadly don't think he ever appears in the series again, but I hope he's doing well with whatever he's doing these days. I honestly do really get the vibe he's retired, but if so, I hope he's enjoying it. And if you do need more of him, he does show up in the music video for the song Pawn, which is a fairly obscure Epic Lloyd solo release from about a year after this battle. It's basically a rap about chess, and if you like ERB, you'll probably fucks with it. So that's kinda neat. Anyway, God, I love this battle. And after what I consider a couple pretty big misses with episodes 8 and 9, it feels good to finally be back on track. In the words of that one meme, this is where things get epic. And we'll see if that train keeps rolling next time as we ride the Hogwarts Express all the way to Mount Doom and see what kind of magic 2 wizards can conjure on the battlefield. And if you enjoy the show, like, subscribe, and head over to my Patreon and show some support there, and I'll catch y'all next time. And before we get started, a very special thank you to Timey for supporting me on Patreon. If you also love the show, head on over there and we can get you some sick custom artwork as well. And to preface the battle, Timey wanted me to note, "Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire?" Dumbledore said calmly. Thank you all for watching, and let's get started.
Gandalf!
Damn, we got Gandalf throwing up gang signs before we got GTA 6.
Was it Dumbledore?
Okay. Dumbledore looking a little goofy, but hey, we'll take it. The costuming's pretty decent all around here. Good theming on this one. Basically the 2 most famous pop culture old wise wizards ever, barring maybe Merlin from King Arthur. A natural fit for the format, even if they're missing the of history component just a little bit. But the line between famous pop culture and things that are historically significant is pretty blurry, especially here where both book series these characters are from are already much more historically important than real people who have appeared in the show, like Chuck Norris and the Sham Wow guy. Hey, as long as the raps are good and the lore is used correctly, I don't really mind. Yeah, you just gotta say it. It is the most famous Gandalf quote, the one from when he's fighting the Balrog in Moria. And listen, if you're watching this and haven't read or watched Lord of the Rings, just drop everything right now and go do that. Anyway, I so badly would like to give this a point because it's a great quote, but they don't do anything with it here. They just say the line and add nothing, which is kinda lazy and kind of a bummer for something that's so iconic. So, It's a neutral, I guess.
I brought fires like Shadowfax!
So, this all almost comes together. Shadowfax is, of course, basically the Lord of Horses. Kind of. There's more to it than that, but doesn't matter for our purposes. And then Lloyd at least does rap faster for the next few bars, but, well, it ain't no rap god. He gets way off beat, and everything sounds sloppy to the point it's almost falling apart. On paper, I like what was attempted here, but maybe they reached too close to the sun this time, and it's kind of a botched job. So, sadly, a negative point.
Come riddle me this, you bitch!
No. No, that's a bad line. Again, if you haven't seen or read Harry Potter at this point, well, it's not as crucial, you go watch it right now. But some spoilers ahead, I guess. Anyway, Tom Marvolo Riddle, or in the French version, Tom Elvis Judasor, is the real name of Voldemort, the big bad of the Harry Potter series. But this pun here with his name, awful. Just awful.
How's your little wand gonna beat my style?
Neutral or negative for the cringy, thinly veiled dick joke? I'm feeling neutral because there is at least an attempt at relevant wordplay. Still sucks though.
I'll leave mics in flames! Touched by Gandalf!
What? Did he say tooched by Gandalf?
Touched by Gandalf!
Touched by Gandalf. What the heck was that? Nah, negative point. Not even a good line anyway, even if whatever he said was legible.
Touch mine, Dumbledore, and scorch your other hand off!
What? Touch mine what? Touch mine what, Gandalf? Your hand? Your staff? And now I see he pronounced things weird in the last bar to force a rhyme with handoff. And the hand thing is a reference to the 6th Harry Potter book, The Half-Blood Prince, where Dumbledore has yucky hand because of plot reasons. But that's not a good enough reference to go through such bad raps for. What happened here? Yikes.
You fool! You got snaked!
Okay, another Half-Blood Prince plot reference. You fool, you got snaped. I don't know why that made me chuckle, but something in that delivery is pretty funny to me, so we'll give a point. Lord knows we need one.
You're not a real fighter!
Okay, just nah. I've watched and read Order of the Phoenix. Dumbledore can throw down, so this is kinda nonsense. I get Gandalf saying Dumbledore's not like a military warrior, so neutral because there is some basis for the statement, but it's just not correct.
Death makes you die, it just makes my bright bright!
Death makes you die is such a dumb line, but it's dumb funny. Yeah, okay, decent enough brag that he's immortal. Gandalf is one of the Ishtari, okay, whatever, go watch In Deep Geek if you want to know the lore stuff. But basically, Gandalf's a demigod and can't die a mortal death, which is a decent brag, so we'll give a point.
It's just like Gringotts, everyone makes a deposit!
Bruh. So first, yes, Dumbledore is canonically gay, as first revealed in a tweet by J.K. Rowling in the late 2000s, which was a really dumb way to do that reveal, by the way. Gringotts is the wizard bank in Harry Potter. As far as this diss, I mean, it's kind of funny in a shock value kind of way, but it's simply in too bad of taste without being funny enough and well acted enough to justify it.
We all know you've more than a boggart in your closet!
Yeah, no. I let the last one slide, but just barely, but you're stuck in the closet is not funny in any way. It's just an offensive thing to say referring to being in the closet, which is a term for essentially a gay person having to hide their identity for fear of the negative response they may receive from people. It's something you need to be really tactful about and really funny with to turn into a successful joke, and here as a throwaway line with a reference to a Bogart, which is a shapeshifter in Harry Potter, it's not successful. Negative point.
The prophecy forgot to mention this day.
This impression sucks. Dumbledore is generally like a soft-spoken old wise man, except that one scene in the 4th movie where he's especially speaking very calmly. I don't get this really aggro, snide take on him. I guess it's season 1, we've had a lot of pretty whack takes on characters, but this one irks me, especially since his characteristics are so clearly laid out in the series.
Hey, when I knocked your ass back to Gandalf the Grey, check your status!
Okay, yeah, we'll let it play. The prophecy is a plot device item from Order of the Phoenix. Decent reference, and the visual costume change is fun. In Lord of the Rings, Gandalf the Grey becomes Gandalf the White after he's deemed by Arua Luvitar to... Okay, yeah. Basically, he levels up halfway through the series and gets a hot new look. It's not amazing, but I think the line squeaks out a point.
They call me headmaster, you're nothing!
Yeah, I guess your job title is more impressive because Gandalf doesn't have a job in the same way. But he's not nothing. Again, he's literally a demigod, chosen by Manwë, leader of the Valar, to... Yeah, I know. Look, Gandalf ain't nothing. Relatively speaking, Dumbledore is nothing compared to Gandalf, if anything. It's a dumb line, negative point.
Nice staff. You compensating for something?
What a weird frickin' shot to use in this instance. Anyway, it's literally almost the same dick joke as Gandalf's, but it's done much more effectively here, and honestly, I'm giving a point.
I prefer the company of wizards and I'm proud of it.
So that's supposed to be Gilderoy Lockhart, in-universe famous wizard in the Harry Potter series and a major character in Chamber of Secrets, the second book. He turns out to be a bad person, so not necessarily the wizard you'd want to keep company with. In fact, he's maybe like the third or fourth worst and most nonsensical person to have here as Dumbledore's example of an awesome wizard. And side note, Lockhart here is portrayed by Pat McIntyre, who is another friend of the show from the Mission Improbable troupe. I actually missed him in the last battle where he showed up as a weird mime George Washington for a second, so a nod to him here where at least he looks a bit better. Hello Pat, and goodbye forever. These were his only 2 episodes. Anyway, weird line with elitist undertones about wizards that really is not in character for Dumbledore. It's more in character for the villains of the Harry Potter series. Honestly, taking a point off, it's poorly researched, and choosing Lockhart of all people for the visual drags the line down further.
You try to win your battles with 2 fat hobbits.
Not really. There's actually 4 hobbits involved. Frodo's not even particularly fat. He's also got elves and Viggo Mortensen on his side. I guess neutral. I get the idea of the diss, but it's not well executed.
You think your hairy-toed friends are gonna harm me? Wait till they get a taste of Dumbledore's army.
Huh. So Dumbledore's army is something from Order of the Phoenix. Dumbledore isn't actually involved with it, and the name is semi-ironic because it's not actually an army, it's just the main characters who are literally a bunch of teenagers teaching themselves self-defense techniques because the school gets taken over by Umbridge, who's that book's main antagonist. Anyway, this line is almost a negative because it's messy and misguided, but at least they're trying, and the line itself kinda goes hard if you ignore the lore. Also, I do love that bling.
Do not take me for some conjurer, cheap trick.
Another great Gandalf quote, and another one squandered in the same way as the opener because they didn't do anything with it again. Bummer. Another neutral.
I don't give a fuck about your Order of Phoenix.
Well, it's pretty bad, but it didn't hurt the same way as the Tom Riddle one. And the wordplay's a little clever, so neutral. Fawkes, by the way, is the name of Dumbledore's Phoenix.
I'll tie a new knot to your beard with your wrinkly balls.
What? How's that even work, man?
I am the one rapper to rule them all.
The One Ring to rule them all is the inscription from The One Ring. This line hurts me.
Your spells are a joke, not funny ones either.
This is a setup line, so hopefully it goes somewhere.
Minds of Moria? Ha! More like mind 'em and see 'em.
Oh my god, why? The Mines of Moria are where Gandalf and the gang ends up traveling in the Fellowship of the Ring. It goes poorly. Mind of Mencia is such a random left field pull. It's a Comedy Central sketch show from the mid-2000s starring Carlos Mencia. I remember it being fine-ish at the time. It was like bootleg Chappelle Show. I'm sure it's aged like milk, and I have no desire to watch it again. Totally out of nowhere reference for this rap. It makes 0 sense, and this is a hard negative.
I'll expecto my patronum on your face, you little snitch.
Oh, it's bad. It's so bad. But I guess expecto patronum and the snitch are Harry Potter words, and I just want this to be done with. Neutral, whatever. Get it out of my face.
And when I'm finished, I'll apply like it's Quidditch.
Oh, that was awful. They were even short a syllable, so they had to extend Quidditch in a weird way. Terrible closer. One more negative for the road. Also, friend of the show Timey brought to my attention that this closer is actually a reference to an incredibly obscure and forgotten song by Nice Peter. It appears to be a Fly Like a G6 parody called Like It's Quidditch. Timey described it as an orphaned reference, which I think is a pretty perfect way to put it. I thought we were past the really bad episodes, but this caught me off guard. Unlike with Easter Bunny Genghis Khan, where I went in knowing it was pretty bad, I remember this being so much better than it was on rewatch. Maybe it was the star power. I loved both franchises as a kid, so maybe I was just blind to the flaws, but this is all just kinds of embarrassing. I really don't know what happened here, and especially with how well researched the lines in the last episode and the Hawking Einstein one were, I'm astounded at how poorly they represented these source materials. So many lines here just don't work and just don't make sense. And I'm unwilling to believe that the ERB team was this unfamiliar with the details of two of the biggest franchises of all time who just had huge blockbuster success within the past decade. It almost feels like the script was still in the rough draft phase and they had to push it out for scheduling. I am a bit curious actually, because I'm pretty sure this was right around when Maker Studios was really starting to get involved with the show, and I do wonder if maybe a bit of burnout or rushing was taking hold behind the scenes, or if there was some difficulty as the scope and budget grew. After all, this battle is one of the best of the season in the costuming and effects department. All these years later, it still really looks great and feels epic in a way other battles haven't captured, especially in season 1. But maybe so much time went into the visual aspect that the actual writing itself suffered. It's all just speculation on my part though, so take these ideas with a grain of salt. I'm really shocked by the issues with this battle, and maybe I'm grasping for some sort of reason, but who knows? Maybe things were just out of whack. After all, life's a great balancing act. Sadly, it's true. Bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. But there's fun to be done. Rap battles to be won. Oh, the places we'll go. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, support me on Patreon, link in the description, and I'll catch you next time. And before we get started, thank you to all my subscribers and a very special thank you to my Patreon and Coffee supporters, Poner and Timey. Poner wanted me to shout out his ERB podcast on the Lay Epic channel, where he says, when he does his episode on this battle, he plans to feature Shakespeare expert Lavender Whale, partner of Schaeferillis Productions, to give some thoughts. And it's a good podcast, so I'm personally excited about that. Go check it out and join the ERB Discord server, link on the Lay Epic channel. And Timey also wanted me to do a shout out, this time to Animation vs. Anything, with her comment, watch Puss in Boots vs. Cat in the Hat by Eddie FRB. It doesn't have the things rapping, which I don't understand. What's wrong with these?
Tell me!
Oh, you'll find out. I'm about to talk about it. On with the show. What a different style of beat we've got on this battle. It has that 2000s club hip-hop sound that's got me expecting Lil Jon to just show up and yell shots at any given moment. It is kinda cool though.
Dr. Seuss!
So we have Mickey Meyer here as Dr. Seuss. Frankly, I forgot that this battle had two guests since George Watsky is the big name for the episode, and Meyer doesn't even rap or have lines for his one and only ERB appearance. And on the surface, he seems like a very left field choice for the show. But looking it up, his circumstances are pretty similar to Lisa Nova, who played Sarah Palin in the 4th episode. Like Lisa, he doesn't come from a musical background, but rather from the business side of the entertainment world. And he was, also like her, in a pretty high up position within Maker Studios at the time as the executive producer for epic rap battles of history. All that is to say, while yes, he is a very impressive businessman, I don't love, again, having someone so removed from the music world being involved in the battle. Granted, this issue is mitigated by him not having actual lines, but he still does have a performance. And we'll talk about that performance a little while later. For now, let's get on with it. Alright, big moment. George Watsky on the mic for the first time in the show. And not for the last time. Watsky is basically a modern day Renaissance man. He has poetry, rapping, producing, writing, and acting all under his belt, and he's not even 40. Good for him, honestly. Back in 2011, he was already known on the comedy rap side of the internet for his Pale Kids Rap Fast video, which is basically the joke of White and Nerdy meets that one section of Rap God that's really fast. It's still impressive on a watch now, and 2011 would have certainly blown some minds. His fast rapping ability would essentially become a hallmark of his style, and we'll get to hear a bit of that in this battle. Trying to figure out if he was cast here for a specific reason, I first wondered if he was a Maker Studios label mate with Lloyd and Peter, as was the case with Tim Chantarasu, but it looks like Watsky was self-produced at this point. I'm just going to assume it's an example of big YouTubers in the same niche doing a crossover to help promote each other's work.
Come bite my thumb, I hope you know the stakes.
So starting out, Shakespeare is appropriately verbally throwing down a challenge, saying, "Come bite bite my thumb. Come bite my thumb was, in Shakespeare's England, basically a combo middle finger and invitation to a fight. But what follows this I hope you know the stakes thing, it's not a reference, quote, or anything as far as I can tell. He's basically just saying, go f*** yourself. Hope you know what that means. Which, like, no matter how you slice it, it's an awkward line. So while I like the opener, I think the follow-up to it is a bit messy and odd, so it'll be canceling out to a neutral.
I'll put a slug between your shoulder blades.
Absolutely no you won't, William. So a slug in this context is a shotgun slug. Slugs aren't quite bullets, but they function more or less the same. The thing is, they weren't invented until maybe the late 1800s. So Shakespeare, who died in the early 1600s when they still had to hold the gun on a stick to aim it, will not be shooting anyone with a slug, and we're taking a point off for the egregious historical inaccuracy. And yes, maybe this could be a reference to Romeo plus Juliet where they have guns, but I don't think it is since they don't use any extra visual reference and they don't mention anything related to the movie in the rest of the battle. Also, it's really funny he's using a slug because slugs are used specifically because they are less lethal to humans than things like buckshot. Like, yes, obviously getting shot directly in the shoulder blades is bad no matter what, but I think it's kinda silly he chose the option specifically designed for safety.
Then ask what light through yonder poser breaks.
What light through yonder poser? Huh? So obviously, what light through yonder window breaks is the original quote. It comes from Romeo and Juliet, one of Shakespeare's most famous plays, and it's probably one of the most well-known Shakespeare quotes in general. But through yonder poser? I mean, a poser is, well, it's still slang that's used, but it was way more common back in 2011. You know, you're a fake, you're a phony, you're a poser. The implication is Shakespeare saying, you aren't a good writer. Compared to me, you're a poser. And I was hoping maybe poser was a word Shakespeare invented, since that happened with quite a few words that we use, but I learned that not only is poser originally a French word that was adapted to English, but it also didn't even start getting used until around the 1800s. And in this and any context, I don't understand how any sort of lighting would be breaking through a poser. Unless that person has glass bones and paper skin, they'll be blocking that light pretty effectively. Unless... is he saying he'll see the sunlight through the bullet hole from the slug in the previous line? If so, that's super morbid and not in a fun way. It's a negative. I don't care if it's a valid reference. What it actually is saying is essentially gibberish.
I have been iambic on that assy bastard.
And right, so I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about this. So for the whole battle, Shakespeare's lines are set up in what's called iambic pentameter. It's a fairly specific way to structure lines and used to be fairly common, especially in poetry and theater because of the unique way it stresses syllables. The best way I can describe it without getting into the weeds regarding language theory is that iambic pentameter mimics a heartbeat. It's an interesting way to write and speak, which unfortunately has basically been ruined forever by school teachers beating it into the ground and inevitably causing anybody to use it to be compared to Shakespeare. And it's neither here nor there really, but personally, I'd call this a massive failing in the way that we teach language and literature. Anyway, back to what's being referenced. I do think "I hath been iambic on that ass" is kind of a terrible line. And this is probably a take that'll make a few of you upset, but I think Watsky doesn't stress the iambic enough. It's a bit too subtle, and I think ends up making the choice fall into the interesting bar trivia category rather than really having a huge impact on the battle. But still, writing an entire rap battle in iambic pentameter and then having it work out with a beat is really impressive. On principle, this deserves a point, but I can't sit here and award a point to every line because it's in iambic pentameter, so what I'll do is allow that iambic on that ass line slide, award a blanket 3-pointer for the use of iambic here, and we'll move on. Groovy? Groovy.
My rhyme's a classic. Your crap is drafted by kindergartner high on acid.
Okay, that's not bad. I'm worried a little it's falling into the same trap Beethoven got in of "I'm Shakespeare and you're not, so I win," but insulting Dr. Seuss's work, which usually features fairly trippy, colorful visuals and has a certain surreal goofiness as made by a small child high on hallucinogens, is pretty solid. So here's a point.
Yo, man, you're an old white soldier boy who has no swag.
Oh wow. In a show where we've had Chuck Norris jokes, the ShamWow guy, and Justin Bieber, somehow I think this may have been the most dated moment of the whole series so far. This one's crazy because it's basically double dated since it contains dated language from 2 different time periods. First off, swag is something people still sometimes say, but if you weren't there, I don't think you get how prevalent the word swag, the idea of swag, was at the time. Hearing it in this rap, I had a sleeper agent moment where I had the sudden urge to just yell "YOLO swag" drag. It physically hurt to hear is what I'm saying, which makes combining it with Soulja Boy, which was a dated reference even in 2011, hurt even more. Soulja Boy is having a little bit of a nostalgic comeback at the moment as people rediscover some of the Y2K era, and that's fine since hearing Soulja Boy tell him once in a while is no problem, and Kiss Me Through the Phone is kind of a banger. But boy, in 2007, I don't know how he survived. That song was ginormous, and frankly, after the first minute or so, you've heard everything the song has to offer. But then it just keeps going. Even in modern nostalgia settings, you can see people getting bored and going for another drink during the back half of the song. Can you imagine a time when you'd literally hear this double-digit times a day? Like, it just wasn't good after a while. Anyway, Watsky here even adds the dumb little dance move, but it doesn't help when you've somehow designed the most scientifically dated cringe line from 2011 possible. Also, Shakespeare was literally also old and white. How this line does not work. Let me count the ways.
And no gonads, egads, it's so sad.
Gonads are balls. He's saying you don't have balls. Kinda lame on its own. Egads is the scientist from Luigi's Mansion, but beyond that, it's an old-timey way of saying, oh god. Unfortunately for Watsky, it's not old-timey enough, as it was first used around 50 years or so after Shakespeare's death. So, almost, but not quite historically accurate once again. Shakespeare really out here hitting us with the you got no riz on God for real sheesh. True poetry in motion.
And to top it off, you're not a doctor.
This is true. Dr. Seuss is the moniker used by author Theodore Geisel. I suppose Mr. Seuss doesn't have the same ring to it, and unlike the Pib guy, he's a bit too insecure to shed the persona. Not the most amazing diss, but I'll say it's worth a point.
I've never seen a softer author.
Hey, no, I'm rejecting that line. Yes, Dr. Seuss was most famous for kids' work, but that doesn't mean his writing was soft. Oh, The Places You'll Go is a fantastic work exploring going from childhood to adulthood. Cat in the Hat just slaps, period. And the 60s animated Grinch, which Seuss had a heavy hand in creating, is one of the best Christmas watches. And also those videos where the guy raps the books, those prove that the lines Dr. Seuss wrote go hard. And B, much more importantly, yes, he is known for his kids' books, but my dude also made hundreds of World War II propaganda pieces, including this insane image of the mustache man as a sea monster covered in, well, the Symbol, which needs to be a punk album cover ASAP. And Dr. Seuss also wrote an erotic novel with not safe for work illustrations. Unless it's the soft core kind, this author is not soft.
You crook, you! I bet you wrote the Twilight books too!
Oh boy, Twilight. So back in 2011, calling the books and movies bad was basically considered automatic comedy in some circles. Now, looking back, clearly there's an element of sexism and the hate of Twilight has a bit of an incel vibe to it, to put it bluntly. Sure, the Twilight books and movies aren't particularly great on a technical level, but they're phenomenal entertainment and melodrama, and the haters at the time basically actively ignored that fact to try and be superior. What I'm saying is, it's a bad look. And so this line has aged pretty poorly. The entire cultural zeitgeist that it was built around has completely disappeared. It's pretty wild, and this is exactly the type of line I created this channel to find. Frankly, this whole verse has been, and it's been a blast. But no matter how much fun I'm having, I'm still taking off another point. If not for the Twilight reference, then for him calling Dr. Seuss a crook with no context or justification. Sure, you can just throw out insulting words, but they're weak disses when there's no weight behind them. I'm not quite talking about the actual Seuss performance yet, but I do overall love this idea of him actively drawing in his characters and literally letting his art speak for him. It looks really cool and opens up a lot of stylistic possibilities.
I would not, could not on a boat. Read any of the boring ass plays you wrote.
The would not, could not word scheme is from the Dr. Seuss book Green Eggs and Ham, so wrong character, but we'll let it slide. Frankly, as long as it's any sort of actual Dr. Seuss reference, we'll take it at this point. The line doesn't do anything crazy, but it's just a really solid opener, so it gets a point from me.
Even Horton doesn't want to hear you, and Cindy Lou Who is afraid to go near you.
Horton's whole thing is he's willing to listen to someone when no one else will. A person's a person, no matter how small and all that. And Cindy Lou Who is willing to befriend the Grinch when everyone else thinks he's yucky. So saying Shakespeare makes even these characters not follow through with their compassionate nature is the insult. But it seems incorrect to suggest possibly the most overexposed playwright of all time, whose work would likely benefit from being performed less, has no one who wants to hear him. And I don't think the guy who on record had theater friends, a wife, and probably multiple affairs didn't have people who would go near him. I think both lines end up more as neutral filler because they aren't structured poorly and we're making solid references, but I don't think the disses actually land successfully.
You bore people to death. You leave a mushroom looking like the enemy Macbeth.
This image here has not aged particularly well for reasons I will not be elaborating upon on a YouTube channel. But there is also something about the concept of a bunch of high school kids simply combusting because of how boring Shakespeare is, and I find that really funny. And we have the little Macbeth reference, nothing deeply researched, but yeah, if you haven't read Macbeth, basically the whole plot of the book is people dying, so this is a fitting reference here, and you know what? I've talked myself into it, we're awarding a point.
I entertain a child of any age. You gotta translate what you said on the opposite page.
Many Shakespeare printings come with translations of outdated words on the opposite page to the original text. It's a really awkward way to read a story that makes it basically impossible to connect with the text on an emotional level. Having survived the American public education system, I have some specific painful trauma regarding these books that makes me really relate to this, and I'm awarding a 3. If I didn't have that personal connection, maybe I wouldn't be as high on the line, but I don't know, I still think it's a pretty good diss regardless.
You gonna battle with a cat in the hat? Little kids get scared when I step on the mat.
Wait, what? He literally just said that he can entertain a child of any age, and now he's saying kids get scared when he steps up? Which is it, my guy? That's just bad. That feels like a script oversight or something. Because those lines don't feel at all like they belong next to each other. What a bummer, since Peter was doing so well on this one.
Think your ruffle neck ass gonna rap to that?
Ruffled neck ass is pretty funny. Is it a point though? Probably not. Close though? Really, really close.
I got a best-selling book about me coming back.
I might be cheating and slipping in a little goodwill from the previous line here, but I think this goes pretty hard. Referencing, of course, the Return of the Cat in the Hat, the sequel to The Cat in the Hat, I've heard it features twice the cat and double the hat, which is enticing, to be sure. Alright, it's time. Why the is Mickey Meyer playing Dr. Seuss like a goober high on Quaaludes? And I'm not talking about him being silent. Seuss himself had a fear of public speaking to the point it's hard to find video of him talking, so I'm fine with that decision. But from what I can tell, the real Dr. Seuss was a very well put together man, but this dude, he's doing the weird and creepy heavy breathing thing. His bow tie's crooked. He looks like he just walked into the wrong building in his intro. Multiple shots, he's just staring at the sky, tripping balls. He's not a doctor, as established, but he uses a stethoscope on himself like a child at the doctor's office. He learns what hands are in this shot. This face, this is the face of a killer, Bella. I mean, I get maybe the MO was Dr. Seuss will display childlike wonder to reflect his books, but if so, they went way overboard and tipped into something just so awkward and off-putting for him. I'm doing something I've never done before and subtracting a blanket negative point for this portrayal. Since Meyer has no lines but he's still impacting the rap, I figure this is a fair way to do it.
I'm switching on my style like the Beatles with my pieces. Each is such a wonder with a plethora of features.
Alright, so now in verse 2, Watsky's doing the Watsky fast rapping style trademark, which really impressed me heavily as a kid, but these days, I don't know, I've heard this gimmick so many times, and frankly, fast rapping tends to sound more or less the same no matter who's doing it. So it still comes down to the bars themselves, speed or no. With these first bars, he compares the variety of his plays to the variety within the music of the band The Beatles. And I think it's a good comparison. The Beatles were known for genre hopping with their songs, and Shakespeare similarly is famous for tragedies, comedies, historical dramas, and romances, and highlighting your skills in this way is, I'd say, worth a point.
They're pathetically predictable. You're thinking you're biting through the trisyllabic meter and some ghetto-muppet creatures.
And I think this is worth a point too. He's contrasting his own diversity and range with Seuss's work, which he characterizes as one-dimensional by comparison. Side note, the trisyllabic meter, similar to how Shakespeare is known for iambic pentameter, is the writing style which Dr. Seuss is most associated with. And I believe his characters are also using it this whole rap. I won't give the blanket 3 points for it though, because frankly, it's much easier and more common to work with in a songwriting context. Also, ghetto muppet creatures is a pretty funny way to describe the average Dr. Seuss character, so we'll take it.
The bar is in the building, it's a castle in my boss.
I'm keeping this neutral, but these lines feel like almost random ad-libs. The Bard is the building makes some sense. A nickname for Shakespeare is the Bard, or the Bard of Avon. So he's basically saying Shakespeare's in the house, which is just some filler. But it's a castle seems to be just word association with building, and I'm a Boss is a reference to the Lonely Island song Like a Boss, which was huge in the late 2000s.
Better parliament, the positive, I'm killing it.
What? Well, I guess we haven't had a straight-up perplexing line yet in this battle, so here we are. I bet I'm Parliament. I don't think it's a Shakespeare reference. I don't think it's some sneaky funk music reference either, but I don't quite get how Shakespeare is the British legislative body. Is it somehow related to him being the boss? I don't really know, and I'm taking a point off, since as far as I can tell, this is totally nonsensical.
Iller than the plague I never caught a cholera.
Iller than the plague I never caught is playing off the double meaning of ill and refers to the fact that Shakespeare, though living in heavily populated populated areas of England during multiple severe plague outbreaks, miraculously avoided ever contracting it. And cholera is another deadly bacterial disease that was common in Shakespeare's time and actually pretty common pretty much up until we got water treatment and waste management. So pretty recently, all considered. It's a weak point, but I'm still willing to award it.
A baller on some cricket bowler business while you're sitting in the bleachers.
A baller on some cricket bowler business. I kinda hate this line. Baller is another fairly dated slang term for basically someone successful. A cricket bowler is more or less the equivalent of a baseball pitcher, but for the game cricket, which is popular in England. Now, I don't really know or care a whole lot about cricket, but I was surprised during my research that of all the things referenced in this rap, cricket is actually the one that isn't anachronistic for Shakespeare's time. While he was alive, he could have, in fact, been on some cricket bowler business. I doubt he was, but the sport has existed in England since about the 1550s, and during Shakespeare's peak, it was transitioning from a children's game to a real sport with amateur and professional leagues. While I do appreciate this historical accuracy, I still don't think it's a very good line, but I'll keep it neutral.
You rap fast, you do. Yes, you rap fast, it's true.
I really do wish the Cat in the Hat had gotten at least one last diss in here rather than just saying you rap fast for 2 bars, but oh well.
Now let's see how you rap versus things 1 and 2.
Oh no. Well, there's the moment the battle falls off the rails. I mean, what is there even to say? Look at it. Just look at it. It's deranged, unhinged, disturbing for small children. Let's just get it over with. The Globe Theatre is famously the place where many of Shakespeare's plays were performed in his time. Line doesn't do a whole lot, it's just an I'm gonna beat you type one, so neutral, moving on.
Yo, you may have wrote the script, but now we running the show.
Christ, Lloyd's pitched up voice for this is awful, especially since it's double tracked, it's just ear shattering. Anyway, okay, yeah, so that's just another we're gonna beat you line, this time referencing that Shakespeare wrote scripts. I really hope someone actually says something in this verse, I'm getting worried.
You can take your fancy words and send them back home to your mama.
Kinda just a filler line. I mean, it almost does something by criticizing the language of Shakespeare's works, but we already had a way better take on that diss earlier from the Cat in the Hat, so this retread isn't worth much.
Break a foot off in your ass with a feety pajama.
I fear we're slipping towards negatives, but that really was just another filler line.
Then we'll cook you up and eat you with some ham and green eggs.
I love this goofy little move Peter does, but this is, again, another we're gonna beat you type line, this time referencing green eggs and ham. I'm letting him cook, but I'm now extremely worried we won't have much of a meal by the end of this.
Wake up with your leg, make no mistake, be in the rain.
Okay, no, that one doesn't even try. Break off with your legs? Is that some really weird stretch reference to the theater expression break a leg? I really hope it isn't, and it's just a random threat, to be honest, because if it was, that's pretty poorly done. And we're in a rage does not work when you don't sound angry even a little bit.
All does not end well when we bust out a cake.
Okay, back to neutral. We're about to beat ya, we swear. But this time we reference the Shakespeare quote, all's well that ends well. I hope they can keep that promise since this is the second to last line of the rap.
You getting up stage, Bill? Yo, you just got played.
Boo, your closing line is a double pun? Get out of here, you're done, Lloyd. Go home, hit the showers, come back with some better bars next time. Upstaged and you got played? Wow, so bad. I'm also, frankly, doing another special addendum point here. This portrayal of things 1 and 2, I mean, I suppose it's not the most misguided idea. They are just some kind of weird little creatures after all, but this choice for the vocal style, this costuming, and the bars managing to say not a single thing of interest, I feel compelled to take off another point. How poorly the things are portrayed here really is detrimental to the quality of the raps on the Dr. Seuss side. Some might say I robbed Seuss right at the end there. Others might say Shakespeare should have been miles ahead. Fact is, this battle was messy. The rap is all over the place and overall pretty inconsistent. Shakespeare's first verse sounds good, but it is kinda terrible when you actually think about any of the lines. But his second verse saves it and is mostly solid. Meanwhile, Peter's Cat in the Hat verse is probably secretly the best of the battle, but the Thing 1 and 2 verses, well, probably one of the worst in the whole season, and maybe the whole series when you get down to it. Add to that Mickey Meyer making some bizarre decisions, or at least the director telling him to make bizarre decisions, and it's a messy recipe for a bit of a kitchen nightmare. I have weird feelings after this battle. I've had probably the biggest shattering of rose-tinted glasses I've felt in a while, with this episode not living up even close to how it was in my mind. Oh well, c'est la vie, I suppose. Hopefully the next one will turn out to be double, triple as good as I remember. Hey Soul Sister, ain't that Mr. and Mr. in the rap battle? Stay tuned, neighbor. Subscribe to watch the next battle as soon as it's out, drop a like, leave a comment, and support me on Patreon if you can. And I'll catch you next time. And before we get started, as always, a very special thank you to my Patreon and Coffee supporters, Poner and Timey. Poner has some extra analysis for this episode, noting it's probably not what the original commenter who suggested the two Misters matchup had in mind, but an interesting additional connection between Mr. T and Mr. Rogers is that they were both famously outspoken devout Christian figures in pop culture, and both were, in their own way, considered children's role models. Poner adds that it's a battle that he thinks still works best in Season 1 when things weren't as refined, but it is nice to find ways to make each episode's theming feel a bit stronger. Thank you, Poner. And Timey wanted me to answer a question. If you could have any single matchup with characters ERB hasn't used before, what would it be? And that's a great question and an easy answer for me since I think it's something on the mind of any ERB fan. For me personally, it would have to be Ronald Reagan versus Queen Elizabeth. Something about it just makes sense to me, and they're two characters I'm baffled haven't shown up yet in ERB. I think they have a lot of material that they could use. Thank you, Timey, and I'd love to hear who all of you out there would want to see. Comment your dream matchups below. And if you'd like your own custom artwork and to comment something on the next episode, head over to my Coffee or Patreon pages, and without further ado, let's begin. I love this goofy little rat-a-tat-tat beat to start things out. It's actually a reference to the A-Team, which Mr. T starred in, and whose theme starts off with a similar snare drum sound. As for Mr. T, real name Lawrence Turode, sorry, don't know how to pronounce that, but he was basically a professional tough guy who managed his way onto the big screen where he became famous for, well, pretty much also being a tough guy, but this time on camera. He was Clubber Lang in Rocky 3, Sergeant Baracus on the A-Team, among other roles. And by professional tough guy, I mean that in a very literal sense. He went from being a boxer to a bouncer to a celebrity bodyguard to a WWE fighter until finally finding success on the big and small screen. What a life. As for the man playing Mr. T, we have DeStorm, and he comes from a music background. He was actually homeless in Los Angeles in the early 2000s ghostwriting for Atlantic Records, before finally finding some success through performing on YouTube. Pretty damn inspirational actually, and proof he really did cut his teeth in the musical trenches. By the time he showed up on ERB, he'd already been at it on YouTube for about half a decade, making him an extremely early adopter of the platform. I'd imagine frankly it was probably really cool for the ERB crew to get to work with what was basically a seasoned professional in a new industry. And he will be back down the line, so I imagine that collaboration also went pretty smoothly. From what I can tell, it looks like Powers is still active to this day, producing indie series and music, and I have to say, total respect from my end all around. Dude's managed a steady career in art and entertainment while maintaining his creative freedom and independence for the most part, and all you can do is say that's pretty awesome. I will say this musical cutout with the record scratch to make way for this little PBS Kids xylophone chime is really funny. And a great touch also for Mr. Rogers, who Nice Peter's portraying here. Mr. Rogers, full name the Reverend Fred McFeely Rogers, was a TV personality most famous for his work in children's programming, notably his Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood series. He has an overall very wholesome image which the music is being used to highlight. I do appreciate that there is this element thematically to the battle of one of the most famous tough guys versus one of the most famous nice guys. Because let's be honest, Mr. versus Mr. on its own would be a pretty crap theme for a battle. Oh heck yeah. So this point here is less for the line, which is a decent opener on its own. I pity the fool is Mr. T's most famous catchphrase after all, and he first used it in Rocky 3 as the Clubber Lang character. But this point is more so for how fucking hard the line goes with that keyboard tone that starts the verse. Maybe DeStorm's getting an assist from the music, but my god, it just works so well, it has to be a point for me.
Call me B.A. Bicep. raps, cause I crush the whole game.
Sonically, the line is solid. The performance is good, but I just can't quite get behind the lyrics. I get it, B.A. Baracus is the full name of Mr. T's A-Team character, and at his height, Lawrence for sure had some biceps. And to Storm here also clearly hit the gym, but B.A. biceps as a phrase is just so dumb, and it's not even really the kind of dumb to manage a chuckle from me. I'm just gonna say neutral.
Bring Tuesday, Friday, and Lil Trolley the train.
Alright, listen. Full disclosure, I watched Mr. Rogers when I was very little, and I watched Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood like on a plane at some point. So I'm not totally unfamiliar with Mr. Rogers and his show, but his work is for sure the most I'm relying on Google so far. Sorry, I know, how dare I not have the whole Mr. Rogers cinematic universe on lock at all times. It looks like Tuesday and Friday are a Prince and a King duo, and Trolley is apparently this little train that has a bit of a personality and mind of its own. Honestly, just from clips, I'm feeling I need to go back and watch some Mr. Rogers. This is adorable. But yeah, confirmed these are all accurate characters. Let's see where the setup goes.
And watch me dip their ass in gold and wear them like my neck chain, sucker.
Sucka is another, I guess vocal tick is the best descriptor for it, that Mr. T is known for using. He was also quite famous for his large amount of gold necklaces. And I'm not the biggest on the random violence threats, but this one fits the character and is more an ironic destruction of property threat, and honestly, it just goes really hard too. All that to say, I like it. Here's a point.
I choke you with your own sweater sleeve.
Ah, yes, the back-to-back threats. A double threat, if you will. I'd be lying if I said I didn't chuckle, but I'm also a bit baffled by the way he emphasizes your own sweater sleeves, as opposed to whose. You're in a tank top, my guy. It ain't your sleeves, that's for sure. It's not bad, but it's performed a bit wonky, so we'll say neutral.
Couldn't even beat me in the land of make-believe.
Punk is another Mr. T vocal tick. I like the way they've been incorporating them in the battle. It feels like they've actually worked hard to capture his unique cadence, and it's successful. The land of make-believe is, well, what it is right there in the name. It's like a pocket dimension in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood where a bunch of the characters live. I get what the diss is doing, but it's, to me, kind of generic, so neutral again, although I'm almost at a point.
I will Mr. Teabag you in the closest cemetery.
Yo, what? So first, bad pun. Teabagging, the gamers out there should know, it's when you, well, we'll say crouch up and down really quickly over somebody. Go watch some Halo gameplay if you want to see it in action. But Mr. Teabag, I imagine even at the time this was a bit of a groaner. But then teabagging someone to the cemetery, that's baffling. It just makes no sense and leaves me scratching my head. I'm saying negative point.
Nobody's gonna miss you, cause all your friends imaginary.
Okay, yeah, we'll take it. A bit mean-spirited, but again, it fits the character and it's a good burn. I'm pretty sure some of the other characters on Mr. Rogers live outside the land of make-believe, but the diss still stands since many of them do.
Hi there, neighbor. I hope you don't mind if I change my shit.
Shout out here to all the little cuts during Mr. T's verse to Mr. Rogers calmly getting himself prepared for the battle. Really great touch that leans into the tough guy versus nice guy theming, and it gives Mr. Rogers a pretty unique opening line, both structurally and topically. Honestly, screw it. It gets a point. It's really creative and allows Mr. Rogers to shift the flow and tone of the battle more how he wants it. It's basically a subtle power move, and yeah, it deserves recognition.
I'll be rocking sneakers till this battle's over.
For his show, Mr. Rogers would switch from formal shoes to sneakers to create a more relaxed and comfortable atmosphere. I love the addition of this little touch in the battle. Let's see where it goes.
So I don't get blood from your ugly face on my panty loafers.
We don't think of Mr. Rogers as someone who will be kicking someone in the face so hard that he gets blood on his shoes, and that's why it can make you chuckle. But if that was it for this line, I'd probably say neutral. Luckily, there's a bit more. Mr. Rogers, in a cheery voice with a smile, is basically saying he's more concerned with the cleanliness of his shoes than of both Mr. T's health and with having to try too hard to win this battle. It's again a subtle power move and I think really effective, so another point from me.
I like you just the way you are, one in a million. But it looks like the barber gave your head a Brazilian.
Oh my god, destruction. I like you just the way you are was a phrase Mr. Rogers used on his show to reassure children. Very sweet. A Brazilian is, well, it's the classic bikini wax for women. Brilliant diss with relevant reference material, performed well. Rest in peace, Mr. T's barber, who really caught strays on that one. And you know it's a 3.
I pity your neck, Mr. Gold Chains, you got too many.
Love it. We haven't had a decent response to a previous verse in a few episodes, and this is kind of riding that line to be honest, but I like it as a dismissal of Mr. T bragging about his drip earlier. And I looked it up and apparently Mr. T's necklaces weighed 40 pounds. So yeah, goddamn, I do pity his neck. That's wild. And also the breakdancing is the cherry on top. Point here.
The only gold I keep is on the shelf in Miami.
Yeah, got him. Nailed the humble brag. He's saying, sure, you've got nice flamboyant jewelry, but I don't need all that to see massive success. And it is factually backed up. Another point for Rogers.
I teach a whole world full of children, I can tell. You call yourself T because you're too dumb to spell.
It may be a bit hypocritical here to give a 3, since my botching of Mr. T's name earlier proves it was probably less him being too dumb to spell and more Americans being too dumb to spell that prompted the stage name, but it's still a really sick burn and a mic drop for sure, and I'm feeling big points.
Who you call a dumb fool? Mr. T only needs one letter.
Boof. I mean, yeah, that pretty much cements the previous 3 for me. Mr. T's trying to play it off, but even the character seems rattled here as he tries to backtrack the diss against him. Don't know if it was a conscious choice by Storm or not, but I think it adds to the battle even if it doesn't add to Mr. T's points.
Hello? It's for you. Bill Cosby wants his sweater.
Oh wow, that's aged weird and bad. Although that's, say it with me, society's fault, man. At the time, it's just kind of taking that 90s joke format and making a TV reference, so nothing special and neutral in that context, and I'm quickly moving past it because modern context, it's a bad time.
You're a 40-year-old version in a dumpy-ass house.
Nah, again, I don't know if it's a purposeful writing choice or not, but it almost feels like Mr. T is getting desperate in the second verse, like Mr. Rogers really got under his skin. It makes me really enjoy the battle, but sadly doesn't help make this 40-year-old virgin movie reference land. And Mr. Rogers was very married and very a dad and very not 40 when he was most famous in the 80s and 90s. I'm saying negative point because it really doesn't work at all.
I get Hannibal, Murdoch, hand-face to stomp you out.
Yeah, like I said, he's getting desperate. He's calling in backup from the A-team to defeat an old man. Mr. T is scared of Mr. Rogers right now. Only explanation.
The only pussycat you ever seen is on Henrietta, sucker.
Oh boy, it's just getting sad. Making a second bad virgin joke to a married dad and reusing sucka? I almost feel bad for the guy. He's drowning out there. Ever since the illiteracy allegations, Mr. T hasn't been the same.
Hey, your Mr. McFeely delivers a lot more than letters.
Oh, Lawrence, you can do so much better than lame gay jokes. Wow, this verse came so far undone.
So before you come to battle with your PBS crap, how about I call up CPS about them kids on your lap, fool?
Other family-friendly show people, you could maybe get away with this line, but Mr. Rogers was simply too good for something like this to work. It's in too bad of taste and doesn't land. One last negative point to cap off a horrendous verse that does feel like Mr. T spiraled completely out of control.
Watch what you say. Kids love me more than love. I'm not the one with my face on some whack-ass Captain Crunch.
I'd say the line's missing a but to connect the ideas properly. You know, kids love me, but I'm not the one with my face on a dumb cereal box. Which, yeah, Mr. T cereal is a product that existed somehow for almost a decade, and which was pretty much just T-shaped Captain Crunch. I wish it said fortified with T vitamins. Huge miss there. Anyway, good diss and rebuttal despite the slight grammar tweak. I'll give it a point.
When my plan comes together, you won't even see it come. I'll chop you into 4 black dudes and I'll remake Cool Runnings.
Oh my god, I'm laughing my ass off. It's a rare out of left field diss that manages to work because it's so funny. Cool Runnings, by the way, is this movie about the Jamaican bobsled team. It's aight. And the when my plan comes together line actually references the I love it when a plan comes together quote from the A-team. Mr. T's face here just says it all, like, damn, I don't even have a response. I didn't see that coming. He got me. I gotta go buy a bobsled now.
I'll say this once, Lawrence. I hope it's understood. Get right back in your van. Get the out of my neighborhood.
I'm really debating between the 3 and the 1 here. It's not like it matters points-wise. This battle has long been over. It's purely for the glory. Yeah, let's do it. Having Mr. Rogers drop an F-bomb is a mic drop. Calling Mr. T by his first name is a power move, and for once, the physical violence threat lands. Also, Lloyd is Mr. McFeely with the bat. Make that into an album cover too. Sequel to Billy Mays busting through a table. It kind of started getting sad there by the end. There hasn't been another battle so far where you get that feeling of, stop, he's already dead. Not even Easter Bunny Khan felt like this brutal of a smackdown. And I said on that one I'd be surprised if there was a more lopsided battle, but here we are, and yeah, color me surprised. But this all does bring up another, more important question. Is Mr. Rogers the Season 1 GOAT? He just might be. Score-wise, he certainly is. I mean, 17 in Season 1, where often we're hovering around 0, is just insanity. This battle really caught me off guard. Yeah, Mr. T's second verse sucks, but that almost adds to the package for me, and I think as an entire battle, this is pretty incredible, especially for a battle that flew under my radar. I've never really thought about this one, or as Mr. Rogers being top tier, but after coming back to it, I'll be reevaluating because this was great. Visually and thematically, it all works, and this beat may be my favorite so far. Really funny how this one followed the Shakespeare Seuss battle, which I remembered being amazing, but which fell far short of my expectations. That's why I love doing this show, getting to re-experience these battles with as fresh eyes as possible, to seek out strange new raps in a new world. That is the long-term mission of the WW Kid channel, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Like, subscribe, live long and prosper, and I'll catch you next time. And before we begin, as always, a very special thank you to my Patreon and Coffee supporters, Poner and Timey. Poner wanted me to congratulate Lloyd's Kirk as the most giggity-able role of the season, and to shout out this really classic YouTube poop of the episode. I'll just play a little so you can get a feel for what he's talking about.
I got a neck chopper stuck, I'll put my sword through. Check into a Priceline hotel and watch Hulu.
I have no words, that's just comedy. And Timey wanted me to say, quote, my favorite episode of Star Trek was when Kirk and Spock went on a really cool trek through the stars. I have not actually seen Star Trek, end quote. And that is a really brave thing to admit on the internet, so thank you, Timey. If you'd also like your own cool custom artwork and to leave a comment before an episode, support me on Coffee or Patreon, and let's begin. I feel like I'm saying it every episode, but you can see the budget more and more every single time. I mean, look at it. It's literally space. We went from this to this in like a year. And then this. Sure, it's just a little model ship in front of a green screen, but having this actually fairly cinematic intro with space for Captain Kirk and then a wooden ship on the ocean for Columbus, I just think it's really great. Also, I love the theming of this matchup. It's exactly what this show was made for. Two famous explorers, one real, one fictional, one from space, one from the oceans, one a captain, and one a... What the heck was Columbus, actually? Apparently an admiral. Sure.
Captain Kirk!
I don't mean to ogle, but like, damn. Lloyd's pecs are going crazy in this shirt. Good for him, he's been working out. Also, the Captain Kirk costume literally looks better than in some episodes of the actual Star Trek show, so kudos to the production crew. And Peter's Columbus looks good too. Not as ripped as Lloyd, but what can you do there? Peter's a bit of a noodly boy. And I'm not well versed on 15th century Italian attire, but to me, this seems fine enough, especially for a season 1 ERB video.
Arrivederci, I'm gonna leave before this battle begins.
Arrivederci means goodbye in Italian. Jump scare. Now, this seems like more a neutral line, but as we learned from Mr. Rogers, never underestimate the devastating effects of a good power move. In a rap battle setting, you have to appreciate any way that a rapper can start their verse in a way that stands out and shifts the balance of the song in their direction. And literally leaving the frame and stopping the music, yeah, that's pretty effective. So we'll do a point, it's a good opener. I do wish he said more here than the basic I'm gonna beat you type line. It could have combined with the opener to create an easy 3-pointer, but we'll have to settle for the neutral on this one.
I'll show you how a real explorer handles a situation.
Just setup and generic bragging, but maybe a clever little double meaning in the wordplay. Real explorer here could both mean you're bad at exploring while I'm good at it, and also I'm real in history and you're fictional. But I'm not entirely convinced the line was written with that intention, and even if it was, it's nothing really to write home about. So still neutral.
I'll beat you so bad they'll feel it in the next generation.
It's just another I'm gonna beat you line, this time in the very literal sense, but I do like the use of a Star Trek The Next Generation reference, even if it is shallow. I think the line sounds very good, so I'm awarding another point, albeit possibly the flimsiest positive I've ever given in the series so far.
Bring it on, I'll rip you like a Klingon.
Oof, that sucked. Trying to reference the Klingons, the alien race in Star Trek famous for their fighting capabilities and disposition towards war. But it's the third I'm gonna beat you type line in a row, and the translation of the word Klingon rings really hollow when they don't even do a proper pronunciation in Klingon. And I'm not an expert, I'm not even really a Trekkie, but I'm pretty sure it would be pronounced more guttural and stilted and with a kind of hiss at the beginning. No, I will not be showcasing this. Back to the rest of the line, I know whip is being used metaphorically, but I I feel like an easy rewrite could have worked in a reference to the blades the Klingons are famous for using. I think, all told, it's a pretty big missed opportunity, and I'm saying minus a point.
My rhymes will burrow in your ears like the wrath of Khan.
The grammar here is all messed up. So, I get what we're trying for. It's a reference to the Seti eel larva from the Wrath of Khan movie, which is a parasitic creature that burrows through the ear and attaches to the brain, causing the host to essentially become placated and thus easy to manipulate. Very cool and very iconic scene. But either Columbus should have said, burrow in your ears like in the Wrath of Khan, unless the Wrath itself is doing the burrowing. Or, way better, just reference the damn eels. Here. I'll burrow in your ears like the Seti spawn. Took 2 seconds for that. I swear, so many times I get the impression they're terrified of making references that'll go over people's heads. But then sometimes they'll drop the second law of thermodynamics or reference the intolerable acts. That's probably the worst part of season 1, the overall shallowness and surface level of the references. It's something the show gradually improves upon as they learn to trust their audience, but it's so rough when you hear a line like this. And I know that sure, most people won't know the name of these things, but it's Wrath of Khan, the most famous Star Trek movie. Just use a little bug prop and people will gather from context clues what you're talking about. I'm a bit frustrated on this one, and it's a negative point.
I got a neck chopper, Spock, I'll put my sword through Sulu.
These lines are weird because it partially works and partially doesn't. So of course, Spock and Sulu are two major Star Trek original series characters. Also, hello to our favorite director of photography, John Na as Sulu. And hello to one-time guest Omar Garibay, and sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Omar is another Maker Studios alum, as well as younger brother of Kasim G, who hasn't showed up yet, but trust me, who we will eventually be talking about down the line. Back to the references, the sword through Sulu bit is actually pretty great. Sulu famously can sword fight, so there's a dramatic irony to him being run through. And while Columbus isn't specifically known for his sword skills, he certainly both was armed with a sword and would have known how to use one. So that all works. But the neck chop for Spock, that's a different story. I can't tell if it's trying to reference the Vulcan neck pinch that Spock uses or if it's a reference to the general janky fighting that Star Trek is known for. Probably the first, but since it's again a poorly researched and implemented reference, it doesn't manage to land. I think things all balance out to a neutral though.
Check into a Priceline hotel and watch your fat ass on Hulu.
Damn it, Peter, you're missing easy points. This should have been a 3, but the delivery's so bungled and it goes a little wonky because the battle is Columbus versus Kirk. But this is squarely a diss aimed at William Shatner, the actor behind Kirk, and not the character himself. So William Shatner, man, myth, musical legend, has done many things in his life which one might recognize him for. But in the 2000s, one of his biggest recent roles was as the which I know may have acted as a sleeper agent phrase for one or two of you out there. It certainly was for me. It was a recurring role in the commercials for Priceline, which is a company with a similarly varied history, but which is most well known for its travel services, hence the Priceline Hotel reference. The Hulu line fits in with this as well, with Poner from the ERB Discord and Lay Epic confirming for me that Hulu was the main platform to stream Star Trek on until Paramount Plus a few years back. And Hulu continues to host both Boston Legal and a Hulu original series called Unexplained, so clearly Shatner has had some sort of long-standing contract with them. The bars as a whole work well to paint Shatner as a sellout, and the little extra fat-ass dig works to demean him further. But again, it is weird that we've switched from attacking Kirk the character to Shatner the man, and the disc could have probably been rewritten to be a 3-pointer, but it's still pretty effective and will at least do a point.
I'm the enterprising Captain James Tiberius Kirk.
So Shatner is famous for his, we'll call it exaggerated acting style. He famously loves his dramatic pauses, big hand gestures, and unhinged facial expressions, all of which are hallmarks of any good Captain Kirk impression. There's an argument that Lloyd goes overboard with it in this battle, but I'm chuckling over here too loudly to hear it. And for what it's worth, Peter's Italian accent is totally fine for Columbus, but I wouldn't call it a standout, whereas I do think Lloyd's impression deserves an overall mention and probably an extra overall point for the performance. I think he just kills it, and it adds an interesting extra dimension to the actual rapping with those pauses and odd phrasings making the whole structure fairly unique.
Representing Riverside, Iowa, planet Earth.
God, the impression is still just cracking me up. Not a point, but Kirk is in fact from Iowa, so this is accurate lore.
I hear you call yourself an explorer, but I'm just not having it. You discovered a new world that was already inhabited.
My God, set phasers to get fucked. So yeah, Columbus famously was attempting to circumnavigate the globe, but messed up because he did his math wrong, thought Earth was smaller than it was, and landed in the Caribbean thinking it was India. A really funny cut down of Columbus's abilities as an explorer rooted in actual historical fact, and I'm awarding a 3.
Why don't you boldly go someplace you've never gone before, like India?
Love this beam effect for Mini Kirk.
Or any destination you've actually set sail for.
This is a continuation of the last line, and I'm not giving another 3 since that would be a bit of double counting, but I'll do an extra 1 because it continues to successfully hammer home that Columbus is not good at his job.
Or you, spaghetti eating.
What? Alright, so we're randomly being kinda racist now. Yes, Italy is known for its pasta, and yes, spaghetti did exist in the 1400s, and yes, Columbus likely ate it. But as much as I do love a good marinara, this line is not sitting right with me. It comes kind of out of nowhere and just feels a bit offensive in a bad way, and it doesn't even flow well. I'm taking a point off.
How's your spice rack doing?
Don't love that line either. But I guess it does make some sense. A major trade item from India was the variety of spices which are not able to be produced in Europe. Being able to own and use these spices would have been considered a luxury commodity among European nobles, and Columbus likely would have possessed some sort of spice rack to signify his status. However, the line as it stands doesn't provide that context. It only tangentially connects to the spaghetti in that they're both food, and that line was kind of a bad one to start with, so I don't think continuing with that train of thought is a great choice. And sonically, I think the line also kind of sounds bad again, so sadly, I think we have back-to-back negatives here.
I'll be chilling in my spaceship. Have fun canoeing.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. It's a brag that's kind of an easy layup for Kirk. I literally have a spaceship and you literally use wooden boats. Not the most exciting point, but it is what it is.
You know, rapping against you, it's not even a fun. It's like somebody setting your brains unstuck.
Referencing Kirk's style of speech, which I noted earlier, while also breaking the fourth wall. I think it's a really solid diss and another one of those power moves that Peter's getting really good at using. Screw it, I'll say a 3.
I am the fabric of history. You are a fictional state.
I'm not willing to jump right now into any Christopher Columbus discourse about whether or not he deserves to dub himself the fabric of history, but what I will say is, as always, I'm not a fan of the I'm real, you're not diss. I believe I have a whole rant about it in episode 2. And while I understand what Columbus is saying here, claiming the main character of one of the most culturally significant shows of all time, played by someone as world-renowned as William Shatner, as just a fictional stain, is dishonest at best. I'm saying a negative, could be neutral, but the line just really doesn't work for me.
I'll stick a flag up your ass and then claim your first man.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Columbus had a habit of claiming already owned land for the Kingdom of Spain, who was his employer. The line is kind of just another I'm gonna beat you, but it's pretty funny and has the visual gag element, so I'm awarding a point.
Spock, beam me back to 1492 so I can beat this man like it's my job.
Oh my god, I don't know what to do here because I'm not usually into the random physical violence threats, but this one is written and performed in such a funny way. And both the beam me back and the calling up Mr. Spock are great Star Trek incorporations. Heck, I'm giving a point, just for the vibes. The line makes me happy.
We'll see how Isabella likes my captain's law.
Not in love with it, Kirk was portrayed as a bit of a playboy in the show, and Isabella was the Queen of Spain who employed Columbus, so it all makes sense, but I think I dislike the captain's log double entendre too much for a point. We'll say neutral.
Kobayashi for you. There's no way you could win.
It's another I'm gonna beat you, but this time a solid reference to the Kobayashi Maru, which is a test at Fleet Academy in Star Trek which is supposed to be impossible to win, allowing an examination of a student's reaction to a no-win scenario. It's a clever reference, but I don't think it's quite clever enough here for a point. But it's close. Very, very close.
When your weak crew sees me approaching, they'll be like, damn it, it's Jim.
And maybe taking a little goodwill from the last line, but again, this one just passes the vibe check. It's really funny and well acted, and I'm giving it a point.
I'll double fist punch you, making bitch.
I can't believe I'm not giving this a point, but I'm just not in love with it. Yeah, it references the clunky fight choreography of the show, but slave-making bitch is such a weak burn considering the actual context of, well, stuff that Columbus did. I don't know, I'm unimpressed, so neutral. Also, shout out to Mary Doodles, head of props and costuming as the hot alien. Come on, guys. Anyway, good to see her on screen in a proper battle.
Now, take your genocidal ass off of my brain.
It's almost there, but the line is kinda weak and tonally doesn't fit with what's actually being referenced. It's a very serious topic, and for me, the line kinda lands with a bit of a dull thud, especially as the verse closer. I guess I'll still say a neutral to round things out. This battle is solid. It's your meat and potatoes, no frills, gets the job done epic rap battle. I feel like opportunities were missed on both sides, with Columbus both not dissing the show and not dissing William Shatner as much as he probably should have, and Kirk also not hammering Columbus on the bad things he did, his career failures, and negative impacts he's had on the world. It's all just too surface level, a recurring ERB problem especially prominent here in season 1. You have one of the most famous fictional characters and one of the most famous historical figures in this battle. The general audience knows them enough that you can make some deeper cut references, I promise. Despite these issues, there is still a lot to like on display. Great visuals and costumes, great theming, and regardless of the lines, Lloyd knocks it out of the park in his actual Kirk performance. Still, it all just makes me wish both these figures, especially Kirk and frankly the whole Star Trek franchise, could get a redo. It's not even that potential was squandered here, it's that it remains completely untapped. Makes me want to walk up to Lloyd and Peter and talk to them directly. Ask some questions, make some suggestions. Where are those guys? I want to give them a piece of my mind. Oh, hey. Yeah, no, everything's great. Oh, you'll be addressing the audience directly next episode? Oh, it's gonna be kind of meta? Yeah, sounds like a great, not weird at all idea. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, thank God those guys are gone. Jeez, they acted like they run the Sears or something. Anyway, before they come back, like, subscribe, check out my Patreon, and I'll catch you next time. And as always, a very special thank you to my subscribers and to Poner and Timey for supporting me on Patreon and Coffee. Poner wanted to add a little context to the big tooth chompy face insult Peter does against Lloyd in this battle, since it does feel a bit out of nowhere. Basically, when you look at Kid Lloyd, you can see his teeth were pretty exaggerated, and I'd have to guess Lloyd maybe was teased about it in the past and uses that feature as some sort of self-deprecating in-joke. Still not great, but at least there's some context. And also, Poner wanted to shout out Kasim G's absolutely insane, unhinged outfit in this episode. My guy's rocking one glove, the early 2010s long sleeve under short sleeve, and a pair of assless chaps. He's ready to party. And Timey wanted to say, okay, but when are we getting the Peter versus Lloyd death battle? And yeah, that's a good question. Frankly, it's a crime we haven't yet. Though speaking of death battle, those guys have had it rough with Screw Attack being bought and then Rooster Teeth dying, and it's a mini miracle that they got the rights back. And honestly, now that they're independent, I wouldn't even be surprised by an ERB collab. Fingers crossed, and on with the show.
Nice, Peter!
Finally, they did the Easter Bunny costume how I was saying they should. Simple and minimalistic. Way funnier this way. Oh, and nice, this Hulk Hogan costume is way better than the first one. Jokes aside, I have to hand it to Lloyd and Peter. Making a battle featuring yourselves was a pretty bold, unexpected, and dare I say risky move, especially as the grand finale to season 1. Sure, fans would have generally known by now who these two guys were, but this is meta in a way things hadn't generally quite got to on the internet yet, and I have to applaud them. Taking off the costumes in a way takes off a layer of protection. You don't have a character to hide behind, and your skill comes much more to the focus, and if you're not up to it, you end up like 80s Kiss. Don't end up like 80s Kiss.
This is one bit kid that you won't ever survive.
So the double-edged flaw / appeal of something like this is we're not referencing pop culture that can be easily looked up. So we get to asking, why does Lloyd call Peter kid? I'm going to assume it's because Lloyd is a few years older than Peter and it's some sort of in-joke, which leaves it as I guess a fairly awkward neutral line.
I'll beat you, dislike you, then unsubscribe.
It is kind of funny having a rap battle where all dislike and unsubscribe can be used as an insult. It is novel for sure, but it's also literally an I'm gonna beat you line, so moving on.
You'll be good at rapping someday, I promise, bro.
Alright, this one is a point especially for me. The guy who's been saying this whole season how Peter is really growing as a rapper, but Lloyd just started out better. The way Lloyd is so nonchalant about it just voices that feeling of being clearly better to start out so perfectly. Although, as mentioned in the Mr. T, Mr. Rogers episode, I think the someday has already come, and Peter is, in fact, already good at rapping. But still, I think it is funny, and I'm giving a point.
But for now, just stick to editing that gay-ass Monday.
Monday show.
Season 1. We've had enough episodes with lines like this, I don't feel the need to go over it again. It was a different time, and calling something gay but in a bad way was just an average insult. And the Monday show he's referencing is basically a vlog that was on Nice Peter's second channel, and which I believe was moved over in its entirety to the main Nice Peter channel after the actual ERB show had shifted off of it. Back to the line, it's not delivered poorly, but it's a line that simply has to be a negative for what it is and what it represents.
I'll slaughter your watercolor unicorns, eat them for breakfast.
This is a line I'd label as too in-jokey to really land properly. Nice Peter apparently loves watercolors and unicorns and gets a lot of fan art, so Lloyd's line here is basically a very goofy I'm gonna beat ya. Neutral though, since Lloyd's quick delivery there was actually pretty impressive.
Then leak to YouTube, your middle name is Alexis.
Alright, that's pretty dumb, it's just I'm doxing your stereotypically girly middle name, but I don't know, this is the exact obviously lighthearted, not an actual diss that makes sense for this weird creators meta battle thing. I'll give it a point.
I can tell you're scared just from the body language I'm reading. You should start leaving. Look, your hairline's already retreating.
Male pattern balding can be a sensitive topic for younger men, and I'm fairly confident Lloyd wouldn't have been able to say this line without the obvious irony that he is, in fact, much balder than Peter. And actually, in the episode 13 behind the scenes, he jokes to Peter,
Pete, I'm the bald you from your dreams.
Which is pretty funny. But it does prevent the diss from actually landing in a meaningful way, since it undercuts the entire diss knowing that it's all so unserious with no teeth. So, I guess neutral.
Nice, Peter. Who's that? No one gives two shits. Everyone knows your page is just a place that rap battles live.
I don't know, man. I get the idea of the diss. Often creators are overshadowed by their own work, but especially here at the end of season 1 where Nice Peter's name has been pretty front and center in every single battle, it's hard to really believe anyone watching the show at this time wouldn't have figured out who Nice Peter was. I guess keep it neutral again.
Dude, you're really huge on YouTube. You got a great career. But remember, you got famous off of my idea.
Yeah, this one is a point. It clearly wants to be a mic drop three-pointer, but it's just getting the one. Mad respect to Lloyd coming up with the premise for epic rap battles, but obviously it was a collaborative effort that allowed the videos to actually happen and succeed. And again, everyone involved in this battle knows that, and the meta-narrative really is doing all it can to prevent lines from having any real weight, but this one still pushes through and gets the point.
The battles were your idea to start with, that's no lie. But I'm the one who had the brains to let a midget play the bad guy.
Man, he can't just say midget like that. But it is a sick burn. It's super ableist though. But Lloyd is pretty short.
Look at you! Let me just tell you what I see. You're a short little sidekick. I'll call you Mini-Me.
He's Peter's mini-me. He's Peter's mini-me. He is Peter's mini-me.
I drew a mustache on your face and you played a mean Hitler. Take the mustache away, you look more like Bette Midler.
This is literally the exact same vibes as when Justin Bieber said Beethoven smelled like Betty White. Just choosing a random old lady celebrity to kinda dunk on. Lloyd doesn't even look like Bette Midler, with or without a mustache. And frankly, Midler doesn't deserve to catch a stray like that, so negative point.
You big tooth, choppy face, horse-looking prick.
As I've said before, physical insults need to walk a line to land and be funny. And this simply doesn't even get close to the landing strip. This one crash landed in the Hudson or something. Like, even knowing in the meta context Lloyd approved this line, it still feels too rude and mean-spirited for the battle.
You and Bill O'Reilly could both suck my dick.
Honestly, it might be weird to hear, but I'm giving this a point. It's a callback to the very first episode, performed well, and I think it's really neat having the season kind of come full circle like this.
You're taller than I am, but you look up to me, the guy who got you your first job in comedy.
Damn, I mean, yeah, it's a solid brag. Again, cool lore dump, and it's a bit of a power move, so it's a point.
I wrote your best verses for you, let you scream on the chorus. You got as much music talent as Chuck fucking Norris.
I again like the callback and see what Peter's trying to say, but claiming the guy who clearly had a better flow than you for at least half the first season had no musical talent isn't going to hold up under scrutiny.
You, a musician? Man, that's kind of stretching. You wrote 87 songs with the same chord progression.
Hey, if it worked for AC/DC. No, but that's kind of funny. I have to assume it's not 100% true, but even if a good chunk of Peter's songs at the time had the same chord structure, it still stands as a good diss.
You look like a thumb. Where'd you even come from?
Again, it feels a little too mean in this context, even if Lloyd does kind of give the same vibes as these dudes from Spy Kids.
It's like a battle rapping a fat version of Gollum.
The line is kinda clunky too, and fat version of Gollum feels like a pretty weak diss with an arbitrary pop culture reference, so I'm saying negative.
I'm gonna knock you right out of your
a little Superman sock.
Another line that's way too much of an in-joke to land, it's referencing a forgotten Nice Peter song called Superman Socks, and this is all giving me Fly Like It's Quidditch flashbacks, so we're moving on.
You were nothing before you rode up on Cassim G's jock.
Do I want to deep dive into Cassim G right now? Not really. SparkNotes version, he's a friend of Peter and Lloyd and co-founder of Maker Studios, who at this point was producing the show, and from what I understand, he was a major proponent of ERB. The diss itself is just mid at best, so neutral.
Man, you don't even have to say that kind of shit. Fuck the rap battles and you. I quit.
I almost want to give one last negative for the road, since it's goofy as all hell that of all the things Lloyd said, this is the one that made Peter get super emotional. But I'll keep it neutral. The man's in mourning, don't want to kick him while he's down. And also don't want to end the season on a negative because, yeah, that's it. Cassim G himself shows up on a flying wolf, which I promise was really cool and funny and random at the time, guys, I swear. And then he Superman lands, slaps Peter a couple times, calls Lloyd Todd, and tells them to make a second season and put it on its own channel. Probably one that's named ERB and not a dick joke, because frankly, Disney's about to make Cassim a lot of money and they really need to clean up their act. We get to see a few costume teaser shots, including Henry VIII from that cut episode, and then it's over. Like a candle in the wind. So I guess here's the scores. I can't say I'm terribly surprised that in a season 1 head-to-head, Lloyd beat Peter by a wide margin. And I'll always be the first to say the progress Peter made as a rapper from episode 1 to episode 15 is astounding. And by this point, he is already a very good rapper. But it's not like Lloyd wasn't improving his flow during that time as well, and the only times Peters won this 1v1 matchup all season were when Lloyd had to rap in only Chuck Norris jokes, hands metaphorically tied behind his back, and when both of them sucked as wizards so bad that it was only a matter of who sucked less. I do wish the season had ended on something a little more, well, epic. The studio head showing up for a cameo and whispering a bunch of stuff with, for whatever reason, no subtitles, lands with a bit of a thud. I kind of feel like they wanted to just get on with it so they could launch the official ERB channel and start the higher budget season 2, but still. It leaves season 1 feeling like a nearly abandoned project, like it's not quite a complete package. It's all there, but they wrapped it up and forgot the bow and name tag. One positive I'll say, the last few bars where Lloyd and Peter are spitting out back and forth quick verses against each other is pretty great. An awesome shakeup to the formula and introduction of more complex rap structures that we would hope to see in a future season. Even with that, overall, I think the word of the day is nonplussed. Not the worst thing in the world, but not meeting season finale expectations. But hey, on the bright side, we've made it. 1 season completed, in the books, 15 battles scored. God, I need a vacation. Have a good summer, hags. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.